Hello, how are you today?
I don't really know what I'm doing here.
Stimulating late-night sports conversation for people who know that just trying to find someone sober to talk to at this time of night is like trying to find a pig on the moon.
In the early morning mist I see.
No rules news debate from around the world and around the bend. The two mics.
Apply more lager.
On Talk Sport.
Yeah.
Look at the light!
I go, don't worry about the time. And as the rest of Fleet Street arrived and were pouring up the drive of this hotel, they saw me being wrestled out of the hotel with my hands handcuffed behind my back, getting beaten up by the Italian police, thrown in the back of a police wagon very brutally, and taken off to jail.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say that it's time to say a very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
A very good morning to you, Mike. Excuse me. And you're
right.
absolutely right to focus on and open the show with Roy Hodgson
Yes.
in all the... excuse me.
Have you had a bad day? Have you got
No, I
that-
haven't had a very good day.
Chest
No.
infection back.
No, there's a few chest infections going around. Let me tell you, I've got some real health issues to
Have
discuss
you?
with you tonight.
Oh,
I've had
okay.
a new set of health journals in.
Have you?
And there are some very, very pressing... What are you
A
laughing at?
new set of health journals in. Do
So-
they normally come in on the last Wednesday of the month?
They come towards the end of the month,
Do they?
and they're very important issues, but
Okay.
we'll discuss that in a minute.
Splendid.
I mean,
I look
for
forward
instance,
to it.
I've detected from one of them that you are quite possibly or
Yeah.
probably going blind. Sorry, what's your problem? You think that's funny? You think that's funny?
Why do you think
it's
I'll go blind?
Because you've got all the symptoms
Really?
of some new
Well,
technology.
can you give me a couple of
Information.
Of ideas?
Well, you know, I've seen you wearing dark glasses when we've done live shows
I do
in
wear dark
theatres where
glasses,
there's no
yeah.
light.
Yeah.
You are burning your retina out.
What, by wearing dark glasses?
Yeah, by lack of light.
No, dark glasses protect
No.
my eyes.
No, they don't.
From the,
If there's
from
no
the,
light,
from the very
and
large lights that we have on stage.
if there's no light and you can't get any light into your eye, into the back of the eye,
Yeah.
that part of the eye will stop receiving
Yeah,
light.
really?
And believe me, I'm.
Didn't you used to look after a bunch of
if-
people that were going blind?
No.
Didn't you used to pay money for some charity, Sight Savers or something?
Sight Savers,
Yeah,
I
how
did,
did that
for a
go?
long time. Oh, and okay, until the chief executive wouldn't take an email from me
So now
because
you
I
stopped
was
saying-
only some filthy little contributor,
Nobody, yeah.
some
Just a normal person. You mean?
Yeah, I was just sending them
Yeah.
hundreds of pounds a month, to
now
try and
you-
help save
so
people's
now-
sight,
so
but
now
you wouldn't speak to
so
me.
now you don't bother saving anyone's sight because you were personally snubbed by the chief exec.
Yes, that's about
That's
it. Yeah,
about it,
and
yeah.
instead
What a man.
I send my money now to disadvantaged horses in
yeah.
Surrey.
How's
Yeah,
their sight?
I don't know why you find this all so hilariously funny.
Can
you know,
they see well, the horses?
Well, of course a horse can see well. If I were you,
Yeah.
whilst you've still got your sight, and this is a genuine concern for you,
Is
a
it?
genuine
Is it?
warning,
Yeah.
whilst you've got your sight, go to one of these classes where you can be white stick trained,
Uh-huh.
because then you'll be able to find your way around when your sight starts to go.
Really?
Mm.
Yeah. Well, you know what I'll do if I ever do get a white stick? I'll just beat you to death with it. How about that?
Well, that's probably you would, because you'd probably say nobody warned me about this, but I'm trying to warn you, and all you can do is start giggling and laughing. I've got another story tonight about
All right.
giggling. It's infectious.
Is it?
It is
Yes.
absolutely infectious.
It's true,
something
actually.
you shouldn't do.
It's true.
And
Really something
anyway,
you shouldn't do. There was not much giggling going on at the England press conference today.
Well, no, I was about to say, in the 20 years I've been associated with the FA,
Yes.
I've never seen a more shambolic
What a nightmare.
couple of frontmen
Yeah.
for the, well, first of all, we've never come out of a competition looking so ridiculous.
No.
And then secondly, we've never had a couple of clowns representing the FA in the form of Mr. Glenn and outgoing boss Roy Hodgson.
What, you mean Mr. Glenn, who doesn't know much about football? Mr.
Well,
Glenn.
Mr. Glenn, who was going to be, as tough as boots when he first got in.
Yeah.
We're going to judge Roy on his, on his results and all that. That
Yeah.
lasted for about 3 weeks until newspapers started printing stories saying Roy's a bit upset that he's going to be judged on results.
Yeah.
He'd rather just keep having 70 grand a week, please,
Yes.
without any
Yeah,
examination.
because clearly he's bringing on young players,
Yeah.
and it's very difficult to put pressure
Yeah,
on those young
yeah.
players. So you're quite right.
Yeah.
Why should we have any kind of results-driven business?
That's right. So then Mr. Glenn turned round and said, actually, he's the right man to do another 2 years. I think Roy Hodgson himself, who's never won anything of any merit
No.
or achieved anything of any merit in the
Right.
game of football in the, what does he keep boasting to us? He's been in it like 40 years
well,
or
he's
something
68
like that.
now, so, I mean, he's
Yeah.
probably been doing it longer than that.
Yeah, something like that.
He did have a playing career, which was not terrible, right?
He was taking £70,000 a week and still is, I think, until his contract ends.
You'd like to think that having
the end
resigned,
of this month, I think it is.
Well, you'd like to think that having resigned, unless he's got something built into it, he's gone as of the night he resigned, isn't he?
No, you go as the day that your contract expires. If you've signed, he signed a 2-year extension to his contract.
He did, that's
after
true.
last one, so it'd probably be middle middle of July or something like that.
Yeah.
They'll just pay him up probably or something like that. And
but why should he get a payoff? I mean, you should.
No, he's not getting a payoff.
If he walks away from the game in the tournament, and he was only forced to make the press conference because they obviously said to him, "Look, mate, you're still being paid by us, so you better turn up." Because originally he wasn't going to bother.
No, he wasn't going to bother. They didn't actually use that threat to him. You better turn up because we're still paying you. They just put it on his social conscience and said, "Look, you've got to appear and explain yourself." You know. And then he came in and very, very churlishly, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm not going to ever attempt to do
the worst thing he could have said.
The Roy Hodgson voice again, because frankly, it's gone beyond a joke now, you know, and it makes him sound as though he's got some sort of impediment. I mean, I know he's got a speech variation, but I wouldn't call it an impediment.
No.
But he now looks like a stuttering old man.
Yeah.
And that's why I shan't be in any way trying to deride or mock the way he speaks, because that's simply not fair. But it's so unsatisfactory. He must have known, the point I'm making is that in the 2 years extension, taking £70,000 a week, his chances of achieving something massive were minimal.
Yes.
And I mean absolutely minimal.
Except for the fact that they supposedly had this fantastic new crop of young players coming through.
Yeah.
I mean, don't forget, what's the youngest
Where
team?
are they?
Well, they're all somewhere now on holiday, presumably.
Yeah, well, did you see them get off the plane at Luton today? They all came walking down the steps, and then all these limos meet the players. And I'm not arguing about a player getting an individual car to take him home from Luton to Manchester or to London or the Midlands or wherever they live. It doesn't bother me.
Right.
They are very, very highly paid football.
Well,
no, but the FA pay for all that, and that's another issue they've got to look at. Why do they elevate English players to the status of gods when they don't perform like gods?
No, exactly. That's a very good point. And if they want to get a limo home, then
pay for it yourself.
Let them have their own driver pick them up.
Exactly.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
That's absolutely right.
Martin Glenn, of course, is known as a rebranding guru. Right?
Is he?
So this is a guy who should now rebrand the England team from not being useless into something which is actually successful.
Yeah, well, I'm not sure how he's going to do that. And then,
I mean, he's managed to do it with pet food.
He's
managed
really?
to do it with crisps.
Which pet food?
He's managed to do it with biscuits, fish fingers, apparently.
Bit of whiskers.
Frozen peas.
Well, fish fingers, you can't argue. I mean, fish fingers are a staple food of the British economy, and I can't argue about, rebranding fish fingers. Who was it for? Birdseye Finders?
Captain Birdseye, yeah.
Captain Birdseye. Captain Birdseye.
He was the man.
Perhaps he saw something of the Captain Birdseye in Roy Hodgson.
But listen to what he did, right?
Yeah.
He got rid of Captain Birdseye.
Oh,
right?
is he the man who killed off Captain Birdseye?
Captain Birdseye is the guy who everybody thinks of when they think of Birdseye.
Of course they do.
Aren't they?
And fish fingers.
I mean, you often get likened to Captain Birdseye.
I do.
You look a bit like him.
I do. That's
but he
absolutely
apparently
true.
decided it was a great idea to get rid of Captain Birdseye and replace him with a polar bear called Clarence.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah,
Clarence Birdseye.
Yeah, Clarence the cross-eyed lion.
So I'm not entirely sure that this is the right man to be changing the branding image of England.
Well, images, once people start talking about images and products and what do they call it? We are a product, we are not a football team and all that, then you've lost it, really. Because you know that the focus is actually on generating money and not generating success. So there's a problem there. But the one expression that Mr. Glenn used today, which is so hackneyed, and I first heard it used by David Davis, again, 20 years ago, was when asked, would you settle for a foreign manager, the best man for the job.
Yes.
What a hackneyed, stupid, inverted old expression. The best man for the job. No, it's your job to find somebody to take on the England team. Don't leave it as loose as the best man for the job.
Do you know what I would have asked Mr. Glenn if I'd been there?
Yeah.
And I probably would have been thrown out by everybody else. I would have said, did you think you found the best man for the job the last time?
Well, exactly.
Was Roy Hodgson the best man for the job? Was that the best you could do?
You're absolutely right to develop that point. If he's saying we're going to find the best man for the job, then you should say, yes, but your track record on trying to find the best man is abysmal.
It is.
Because you appointed Roy Hodgson to a 2-year extension after the worst overseas tournament England had ever participated in. So I don't really think you're the best man to find the best man for the job.
No.
I think you should give it up and appoint a committee of people who know what they're talking about. People like, I don't know, Glenn Hoddle, who is a football boss and a football player of repute. Maybe Alan Shearer, maybe Sir Trevor Brooking should be brought back to give advice.
Well,
maybe Brian Robson.
In the FA, though, isn't he?
I think he's stepped down. Brian Robson or somebody like that. But if Mr. Glenn, the Birdseye man, the man who killed off Captain Birdseye, is now in charge of finding a new manager for the England team, along with old Dan, what's his name?
You're better off hiring Captain Birdseye than Roy Hodgson, to be fair.
You are. You would be better off, yeah. And Dan, the guy I'm talking about, head of coaching up at St George's Park. I can't remember his name now.
Yeah.
Dan. It's not Dan Cruikshank, is it?
Don't know.
No, it's Dan.
I don't know. You're the England expert.
I know, yeah. Dan, the coaching man.
The coaching man.
It's him, yeah, absolutely.
Now, we've got some very important things to talk about because coming up,
Yes.
we've got Terry Fenwick on the show. We've also got Stefan Szymanski,
Yes.
Professor of Sports Management. He's going to be telling us how Brexit might affect the sale of footballers inside Europe and indeed outside Europe, because it might make them much more expensive.
Yeah.
It might make bringing new players to Everton, for example,
Yes.
outside of the reach of your new millionaire owner.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that as well. And of course,
Billionaire,
we'll
actually.
have the result of winners. Well, not anymore. Not since
Yeah.
Brexit.
Yeah, billionaire.
This is
Don't
Talk
worry.
Sport.
The Two Mikes, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Back of the net with Burton's Fish and Chips, exclusive snacking partner of Talk Sport's UEFA Euro 2016 coverage.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out, of course, a little bit later on today. A couple of people complained that it sounded a bit tinny, the podcast this morning, but only a couple of people did.
Why
so
was
it
that?
may have some. I don't know. I haven't asked the boffins here to find out.
Yes.
I suspect it may not be the case. Some people's
Yes.
devices may just replay differently from others. But anyway, if you ever have any problems with that, of course, you know what to do.
Yeah.
You get in touch with Porky, who's now in charge of the podcast, as
No, I'm
he
not.
said the other day.
No.
Oh, you're not?
No, I'm not in charge
Oh, sorry.
of the podcast. No.
I thought you said you'd taken responsibility for it.
Yeah, my responsibility is to sort of shake you up and make sure that you're doing it properly.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay, all right.
Now,
how
don't you
about this from Freddie?
Yeah.
Health tips for MG, or just another excuse for the fat man to poke fun at his idol? Hashtag man of the people.
Yeah. What idol?
Well, I think they're saying that I'm your idol.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
that's probably true.
Sorry.
Mike says this-
Whose idol is who?
Well, it's very obvious. You don't understand English.
No. Could you do that again, please?
Health tips for MG, or just another excuse for the fat man to poke fun at his idol? Hashtag man of the people.
I don't understand that at all.
Well, it means that
Who's the fat man?
You're the fat man.
No, I'm
right?
not.
Well, you are.
I'm not.
And you're poking fun at me, who is, according to Freddie, your idol.
Have you ever been my idol?
Well, everybody knows that you
contemptuous
secretly
of
want
most
to be
of your
me.
li-
No, but everybody knows that you
contemptuous of your lifestyle.
secretly want to be me.
Goodness.
How about
sake,
this
man.
from Mike? The truest statement made by Hodgson, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah,
Only it was
that's right,
4 years too late.
Yeah.
And Dion says, Roy could have been Solomon, garnered some fan sympathy. Instead, he looked like a petulant schoolboy
He did.
having to stay after class.
Yeah, and he still didn't wear a tie. You know, this kind of new look of, look how rough and ready I am and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, you're not wearing a tie. You don't wear a tie, do you?
but he's always worn a tie in the past, that's all I'm saying. Listen, I'll tell you what I was going to say to you. I'd
What
like to
were
know
you?
the result, please, of Winners and
Winners
Losers.
and Losers, very exciting today, Winners and
Is
Losers,
it? Yeah,
because it
yeah.
started with a huge swathe of support.
As you know, I don't check it during the day because I'm not that
Yeah.
obsessed about
No, of course.
how we're getting on.
How many tweets you put out on it today?
One this morning,
Just
to
one?
remind people to vote.
Was that the one where you said vote Porky, vote often?
No, it was just Vote Porky,
Was
actually.
it?
Yeah, I didn't put
Okay.
the vote often bit in because that tends to rub people up the wrong way.
What about the one you sent to the guy who said that he was going to vote Porky once, and you said, why don't you vote twice?
I didn't, actually.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't.
Do you want me
Somebody
to
sent that in my name.
Oh, somebody said it in your name?
Yeah, seriously.
That must be that guy that hangs around your apartment.
Maybe.
Now, how about this? It was very, very much in my favour throughout the morning, I would say.
Well,
as much as 54 to
48.
46.
Or
Well, it can't be
46, that's
54
right.
to 48.
54 to 46.
It was 57, 53, 43 at one point.
Yeah.
It went all the way through the day, and then it suddenly switched to 51, 49.
In my favour.
In your favour.
Incredible.
And then,
What
which
an
was
incredible
amazing.
fight back.
And then an incredible sort of number of votes cast. Do you know 1,745 votes have been
Yeah,
cast?
yeah, that's-
which is a very high
it's a
number.
big number, yeah.
It then flipped to 51, 49 in my favour.
Yeah.
And do you know how it ended? At midnight tonight.
Go on, tell me.
It ended at 50-50.
50-50.
It's
Wow,
an
what an
absolute
incredible
dead
comeback
heat.
from me. I was at one
Very
stage.
dead heat.
At one stage, 57 to 43. I was 14 points behind.
Yeah,
I
but
made
it
up a 14-point deficit.
No, you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't. How do you figure out it's a 14-point deficit?
Because you said 57 to 43.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's 7%, isn't it?
No.
If you take 7% and you add it to 43, what do you get?
50.
Right. So you take the other 7 from where?
Yes, but you see, I got from 43 back up to 50 by stealing 7 off you, so that's a 14-point deficit.
Point deficit.
Well,
no.
it was.
It's
a
7% deficit.
No. Any mathematician of calculus will tell you it's a 14-point deficit made up.
That's why you can't do maths. Anyway, so that now makes it 6.5 to 5.5.
In my favour.
In my favour.
In your favour.
And I think there's 2 weeks left.
Right,
so it's right down to the wire.
Yes,
so next week's is going to be crucial. If I win it next week, that's it.
Yes. Why were you giving a load of Bloxios about extending the voting time?
Well, because we have in the past considered doing that. I'm not sure it's the best thing to do, and people have said it's unfair, but I thought I should offer you the opportunity because we are now, of course, living in the age of public opinion, in the age of voting for everything by popular vote.
And if you don't get a vote that you like, then let's have another vote.
Let's have another one, And so I thought in that sort of spirit, I thought we should just kind of offer you the opportunity, if you wanted to extend the vote. But the problem with extending it through the show is that the people who vote during, having heard it on the podcast, say that's not fair to them.
No, it's not.
And they say we don't get a chance to vote. So I think, because it's 50-50,
we must stick to the dead heat.
I think we should stick with it. And then we can argue about it, for the next 3 weeks.
Yes, good idea.
Just like the people who are outside demonstrating outside Parliament are.
That's right.
Saying that they want, another referendum.
Yeah, and by the way, did you see that? And there's hundreds of them. Did you say that? Oh, amazing. They all just turned up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah. They just have to be passing.
Yeah, all these people with placards and banners.
I believe that's what they call a flash mob.
Flash mob, I think it is. I think it is. Now then, getting back to the football situation.
Yes.
Do you feel particularly upset at the Welsh players cheering and shouting and hooping and hollering?
Actually, no, I don't.
When England won?
No, I don't.
And I don't either.
Because their explanation of it is actually quite acceptable, I think, in which they said basically, of course they know quite a lot of the England players, so it's not a personal slight against them, but they've been supporting the underdogs throughout in all games.
It's not that. It's just that if you... Look, Wales for years have been subjugated by England as a football nation because they're very much smaller than England.
Yes.
On this occasion, they've got the upper hand, so they deserve to feel good about it.
Yeah.
But the other point is, I take it almost as a compliment, because what Wales were really saying is, well, if England as a big football nation with a poor team, but nevertheless a big football nation, I mean, if somebody had thought about it properly, you could have reshaped that team and made them stronger, the England team.
Yeah.
And so Wales are saying they're out. Well, they are potentially stronger than Iceland.
Yeah.
So Wales were only celebrating that one of the main sort of protagonists who could have got in their way at some stage in the future competition, quarters, semis, final, are out of the competition. I don't blame them at all.
There's an awful lot of sort of sanctimonious people around, aren't there?
Yeah.
Because it happens whenever there's an incident on the football pitch which involves a dive or if you support Chelsea and one of your players dives, it's not a dive. But if you support Chelsea and somebody else dives to win the game, then it's a dive, and they're disgusting and they're a cheat and all this. Same with this. I mean, a lot of England fans have been on my timeline today on Twitter saying it's a disgrace, it's disgusting what the Wales players were doing.
I don't think it is.
I don't think it's at all disgusting. I think good for them. It shows they've got team spirit. It shows they've got pride in their nation.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Which counterbalances what apparently the England players did. We spoke to Nigel Adley last night down in Nice, and apparently they had a sort of an all-night drinking session on the rooftop of their hotel.
Exactly.
To drown their sorrows, we're told.
Who was that?
The England players.
Did they?
Yeah. Apparently.
Okay, I'll accept
until
that.
6 a.m.
Although I'll have to research it. The other person in this is not Dan Cruikshank, by the way. It's Dan Ashworth.
Dan
right?
Ashworth. Okay.
Now, Dan Ashworth.
Well, Dan Jobsworth.
Dan Jobsworth. Yeah. And I'm delighted to say that Harry Redknapp, who in my opinion should have been the England manager and not Roy Hodgson all those years ago, 4 years ago.
But you'll have heard what he said on the Sports Breakfast with Mr. Brazil yesterday, I presume.
Yes.
Where he said football's now run by academics.
Yes, academics, and he's actually said he's got no chance now of being picked as the manager. And if that's the case, then I assume he's alluding to my favoured choice, Sam Allardyce, as well. We're dinosaurs now, is what he's really saying. And he's right, that's the way they... But Dan Ashworth, to me, is just a faceless, blinking bloke, technical director. What does he do?
Well, what do they do up there? Nobody knows what they do.
I think he was the bloke who produced the plan Back to Basics, or some nebulous, bit of paper.
Yeah, the grassroots thing.
Yeah, the grassroots, that's right, the grassroots, wasn't it? The 6-month plan, which said things like, you've got to teach young players the skills of football. Brilliant sort of conclusions like that, you know what I mean?
Have you seen that story from Celtic, by the way, about Brendan Rodgers, your favourite man?
He's bought Dembele, isn't he?
Well, not just that. But
that is a really good move, I think.
but he's produced the Brendan Bible.
No, he hasn't, has he?
He has, apparently. I think we may have to try and get a hold of one. Because remember that documentary where he had the names in the envelopes?
Yes,
he did all that,
right?
right?
Yeah.
Well, this is apparently a variation on that, and he's produced this book, which he's given...
a Bible.
He's given this book, right, to all the players.
You have a Bible
so that they can read...
Fantastic football club, the biggest in the world.
Apparently, right, inside this book, it talks about, you know, how they want to play as a team, what the team is all about, you know, how they will be going forward, you know, what sorts of philosophies they have. And it's, I mean, I really would love to see one of these books. So if anybody can get their hands on one, they need to send one to us, because I think it'd be fantastic. Brendan's Bible.
Brendan's Bible, well, I think we should have a look at that, and it should go on general sale, in my view. As for the other issues in the football world...
You'll like this about Dan Ashworth, former professional footballer. He began his career at Norwich City. He studied at, wait for it, the College of West Anglia.
College of West Anglia? Yeah. Wow. I suppose that's in West Anglia, is it?
I would imagine so. Wherever West Anglia is.
Exactly,
but you can tell that it's not a proper college because it's not in a real place.
No, exactly.
There's East Anglia, but there is not a West Anglia.
West Anglia. You know what it sounds like? Sounds like one of those TV series when they invent a new police force.
That's
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The West Anglian Police.
It's not West Mercia. It's West Anglia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I'm sure he does a fine job. He was appointed to the FA's Director of Elite Development in September 2012.
Was he? Yeah.
So that was 4 years ago.
And what has he done since then?
He hasn't developed much elite football, has he?
No, he hasn't. He hasn't developed anything, I don't think. But he's, you know, he is one of those...
You're not having a cup of tea, by the way?
Sorry?
You're not having a cup of tea?
I've got one already, thank you.
You've got one?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you made yourself one?
Well, I brought one in, because, you know, I had a bit of throat trouble just a few minutes ago.
Yeah.
That was designed to get rid of that.
No, does the throat trouble make you incapable of making 2 cups of tea?
Not really, but I have reflected on the fact that, certainly in the last 3 or 4 months, right... You have never made me a cup of tea.
That's not true.
No, it's absolutely true.
That's absolute
it's
calumny.
absolutely true.
I'm sure that's a calumny.
No, it's not. I occasionally, you know...
You've made me about 3 cups of tea.
Yes, that's right.
In a year.
I have.
About 3.
And how many have you made me?
I've made you about 1 or 2.
No, you haven't. You've never made me a cup of tea. And I've decided, you know, up yours, pal, because if I'm going in the kitchen to make a cup of tea and I have to make you one as well, why should I be your skivvy?
You're not. It's not about that.
Get lost.
It's about helping out your colleagues.
Helping out your colleague? Get lost. I'm not doing that. Next time you want a cup of tea, pal, you can find the kettle, the water, the electricity to boil it, and make your own tea. All right,
I'll throw it over you. And
no, you won't. No, you won't. Because if you did, I'd punch you hard.
No, you wouldn't be able to. You can't punch hard. Everyone's seen the video.
No.
If you haven't seen it, go to the 2 Mics TV on YouTube, where you'll see me beating Porky in a punching competition.
By the way, we seem to have been selling a lot of T-shirts lately for some unknown reason.
Good.
Yeah,
excellent.
So that you know.
Actually, I've got more to give you. This is Talk Sport.
Madness, they call it madness. Madness, they call it madness.
This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 Mics. We've got loads coming up, including Ask Porky. Get your questions in now. We've got loads of very, very good ones, and some related to the England situation. By the way, speaking of madness, Suggs and Madness were at Glastonbury this weekend.
Oh, were they?
And he was wearing dark glasses on stage.
Was he?
And somebody actually tweeted me saying he's obviously trying to channel me.
Yeah, well, he
must... Which obviously was a bit of a daft thing to say. But...
No, why is it a daft thing to say?
Well, because he's not copying me, is he?
Well, I don't know. He might have seen our video.
Well, he might have done.
Still for sale, by the way. You can download it at the 2 Mics.
You can?
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's probably wearing dark glasses on stage long before I was.
Yeah, well, there was one... do you know what I was going to say? Very stupidly then. I was going to say there's one performer who actually went nearly blind. I was going to say it was Stevie Wonder, but of course Stevie Wonder sadly was born blind, wasn't he?
Sadly.
And wears dark glasses. But there was... Sorry. No, it was a faux pas. Sorry about that.
What about Roy Orbison?
Roy Orbison...
Actually, he wasn't blind.
He wasn't blind.
But he was very nearly blind. He had very bad eyesight.
And his glasses, I think, contributed to... In fact, I'm sure it is Roy Orbison. He spent so many long years in studios wearing dark glasses. I think that's why he had an eye problem.
No, but he had an eye problem initially. That's why he wore them.
No, I don't think that's right. I think he wore them for effect.
Really?
I'm pretty sure he wore them as part of his image. There was one guy from like the 50s or 60s or something like Duke Ellington or somebody like that.
Ellington.
Who wore dark glasses.
Jazz band. Man.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, wore dark glasses as a sort of affectation, to improve his image and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And his eyesight suffered badly because you shouldn't wear. I mean, you wear dark glasses on stage when we do shows, and
well, that's what we were saying. Yeah, but I mean, I also wear dark glasses when I'm driving a car in the sunshine.
Yeah,
Tell me I shouldn't do that either.
Well, you should, because listen, what I want to tell you now is the time probably to tell you that the sun plays more havoc with your eyes than it does with your skin. You know, people are constantly told that you must put on sun cream and all that.
Yes.
You've got to protect your eyes.
It's a good idea to put on sun cream.
Yeah.
You don't put on sun cream.
Recent survey.
You don't put on sun cream, but you don't go out in the sun.
No, I never go out in the sun. Now, it says here, a recent survey found that only a third of us check the protective rating of the lenses in our sunglasses. So even if you've got sunglasses, they might not be good enough.
Yeah.
And yet your eyes are just as much at risk from sun exposure as your skin.
I'm sure.
And in fact, more. Just as the sun's ultraviolet, known as UV rays, right, can burn... Sorry, what's your problem?
He's read it like you've only just heard of it.
Ultraviolet, UV rays.
UV rays.
Yeah. Can burn skin and cause damage in its deeper layers. They can damage the eyes too.
Yes.
Indeed, experts believe the eyes are 10 times more susceptible to damage than the skin.
Yeah.
The eye's surface are more sensitive to UV than the skin's sensitive to UV.
I'm telling UV.
Making them more prone to sun's damage. And this comes from a guy called Russell Peake.
Russell Peake?
Who is an optometrist.
Is he? Is he related to Tim Peake?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
He was that Major Tim?
Major Tim,
Major Tim, yeah. Short-term UV rays can cause the cornea... That's the transparent window at the front of the eye, by the way, for those who don't know.
Okay.
And the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva is the clear coating on the eye, for those who don't know.
Okay.
It becomes inflamed, causing temporary blurry vision.
Yeah.
And prolonged periods in the sun, even in this country, can cause photokeratitis.
Really?
Which is essentially sunburnt corneas.
Wow.
How about that?
Well, you're not supposed to lie in the sun with your eyes open, are you? What sort of idiot would do that?
Do you know what the Indians used to do in the...
You mean the Native Americans?
The Native Americans in the deserts of South Dakota.
What, you mean when they weren't burning people's feet?
Well, that was the Cherokee. This is the Apaches.
Right.
What the Apaches did was, when they really wanted to sort of punish their enemies, they staked a bloke out on the ground...
Yeah.
And then they got an ant pile. What are you laughing at?
An ant pile?
Well, you know, like an ant nest. Ant nest. They dug up an ant nest.
An ant hill?
An ant hill. And what they did is they took his trousers off and lacerated him. What's your problem? They did. They lacerated him around the genitals, right? And then they put the anthill on his genitals so that it was very unpleasant. But,
I'm sure it was.
Yeah, but at the same time...
Did they not used to keep their eyes open or something as well?
No, I was about to say, at the same time...
I suppose you wouldn't care at that point.
They were very clever, really. They could have been surgeons, I suppose. They cut the eyelids so that you couldn't close your eyes.
Right.
And then over the next sort of 12 hours... The sun, because it's very, very fierce in the deserts of South Dakota, would burn out the cornea in your eye.
Not in the winter so much, but what about the ants?
No, it would.
Were they soldier ants or were they red ants?
Well, how would I know? Don't be ridiculous. But that's what they used to do. That's what they used to do. I mean, it was a double torture, really.
Yeah.
Supposing they said to you, look, we're going to do you with one or the other.
Yeah.
What would you choose?
I think I'd choose the ants.
Would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would as well, probably.
Because, I mean, if you can't see...
No, exactly,
and, you know, you have your eyelids slit.
Yes, that's right.
That's pretty awful.
Well, to just be lying there thinking my eyes are burning out as I'm lying here, it's pretty horrible.
Now, somebody sent me this and reminded me of your tweet from 22:40.
Oh, yes.
Which is 10:40 last evening.
Oh, yes.
OK, folks, still time to vote in winners and losers. Just a small push needed for victory. Vote Porky.
Yes.
Go to the 2 mics.
Yes. Well, that's perfectly reasonable, isn't it?
So that's one tweet that you sent out.
Perfectly reasonable.
You said you only sent out one.
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah.
Should I see if I can find another one?
There's another one. I wouldn't worry about it. Anyway, listen, what we should really be talking about is where we go from here in the world of football.
Yes.
Which we'll be doing in a second or two. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about, right, about the situation regarding the weather, is do you know that changeable weather is responsible for making us all less violent, i.e.
Less violent?
Yeah, i.e. there's...
Really?
Yes.
Well, it didn't work in France, did it?
Well, you know, those weren't very nice people. What I'm saying is that new research has pointed out that there's more violence in hot countries than cold countries because people get aggressive in heat.
I think there's been an argument made for that in the past. But I think that might also be the case that that people who live in those countries have more reason to be violent.
Well, no, it's because of the what it does to your body. New research suggests it's not just hotter temperatures that lead to violence, it is climates that have less seasonal variation in temperature. So
are you saying the hottest country in the world is also the most violent?
Well, yes, in a way.
Well, which one is it?
I'll tell you in a minute. Less variation in temperature combined with heat brings some measure of consistency to daily life. OK?
Yeah.
Now, an expert called Paul Van Lange says strong seasonal
Van Lange?
Yeah, that's his name.
That sounds like a fake name.
He's from Amsterdam.
Is he?
He's from Amsterdam.
Right.
He says strong seasonal variation in temperature affects culture in powerful ways. Planning in agriculture, hoarding or simply preparing for cold winters shapes the culture in many ways, often with people not even noticing it.
Yeah.
But it does shape how much a culture values time and self-control. And therefore, with that self-control, there is less crime.
Right.
See?
Well, I mean, that would explain, I would say, in this country, why when it say you get into the sort of the dog days of summer, which we don't really have too many of, but people tend to get more, riots happen more in the summer here.
Yeah, of course they do.
Than they do in the winter.
Well, rioters only riot in good weather. They don't riot in the rain, do they?
No, you don't riot in the rain.
In fact, I remember covering the riots, actually, across Britain in the very early 80s, in Liverpool and Manchester, London, Brixton, Leeds even,
Yes.
I think they were even in Hull, to be honest, believe it or not. And
did they have riots in Hull?
Yeah, they did,
really?
yeah, I'm sure they did, yeah. And
but nobody noticed?
Probably not, no, because nobody ever goes to Hull. And the cops used to say, they used to pray for rain, because when rioters don't go out in rain, they don't like getting wet.
No, exactly.
It's
like
true.
the water cannon works then.
Yeah, that's right. And also, when they go looting in the wet, they damage the goods that they loot, so they don't go looting in the wet. Yeah, that's right.
So does he say where the hottest country in the world is?
Let me see.
Because I think it must be somewhere in Africa, mustn't it? The hottest country in the world. It must be somewhere near the equator, surely.
I think the hottest country in the world is the Sudan.
The Sudan? What's north or south?
Well, are they two countries now?
Yeah, they split it, yeah.
OK, well, I don't know.
In fact, South Sudan is the newest country in the United Nations.
Is it? Oh, well, that'd be the hottest as well, I would imagine, because it's very, very hot round there. Whenever you see these, on international news programmes, you see a globe and it goes round the world. It started in America, that, didn't it?
Yeah.
Years ago when we lived there,
the BBC used to have it. I seem to remember the BBC
I don't remember
back
them
in the
globe.
early 60s. You know when President Kennedy was assassinated?
Yes.
Which I only vaguely remember, because only 3.
Yes.
They just had a globe going around and around and around. It became, I think, the BBC symbol.
Yeah, but it didn't have temperature spots on it, did it?
No.
No, that's what I'm saying.
No, it's just a globe.
Yeah, but when CNN...
Are you talking about the weather?
Yeah, I'm talking about weather.
A weather report?
Yeah, but when we first landed in America and CNN was in its infancy in the 80s and all that, they invented the globe going round and all the hot spots around the world. And it's always, I always notice, it's always somewhere like United Arab Emirates, Sudan, or...
where's How about Libya?
Place? No, not Libya. It's Sudan.
Oh, Libya. You were in Libya.
Yeah, I was in Libya.
Was
it was
it
very
not
hot.
very hot?
Oh, it's terribly hot.
Yeah.
Terribly hot. My greatest fear was getting locked up in a jail in Libya, because it would have been like being locked up in an oven. You know what I mean? Would have been terrible.
I had to go to Dubai to see these people who'd been locked up for adultery.
Oh, right, yeah.
And it was 135 degrees Fahrenheit.
In the jail?
In the shade outside the jail.
Oh, that's absolutely...
You just couldn't imagine it. It was an absolute nightmare. Absolutely horrific. Here's one from Nick who says, M. Glenn admitted he knows nothing about football, so why in the name of God is he picking the new manager? It's unbelievable, Jeff, he says.
Well, he's not. He's saying he's part of a 3-man panel. Dan Ashworth himself and somebody else. Yeah, no, I agree. I mean,
it's nonsensical, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is.
Absolutely nonsensical.
I totally agree. I don't know why he's in the driving seat. I don't know. I mean, I think he's made a complete fool of himself anyway. And his problem now, mate, is credibility. Because credibility is often represented through the medium that we work in.
Yes.
You can only communicate with people through newspapers, through radio, through television, through the spoken word, and his credibility has disappeared. It's just gone.
It's a bit like, the England players and their confidence, right?
Yeah.
The whole point about their confidence being, sort of damaged in some way has led to them playing badly.
Yes.
Now, whether confidence is boosted by winning or whether it's boosted by having a good manager, we just don't know.
Yep.
But it certainly needs to be,
yes.
That they are filled with confidence when they go out to play. Yep. And if they're not, they'll lose.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, I've got a note here that says the hottest temperature ever recorded was 136 degrees Fahrenheit or 57.8 degrees centigrade in the Libyan desert.
Oh, really?
Well, I can tell you it was as hot as that when I was in Dubai. Yeah. So I'm not sure if that's absolutely correct.
The Libyan desert. Went there once because what happened was, when I was in Libya, they had a very good propaganda machine and we were all in Tripoli. And the Americans had hit Tripoli and had blown up a lot of places there, including my hotel, which I survived. I got out the rubble.
Yeah, you must tell us that story one of those days.
I will, yeah. But the following day, we were all rounded up and put on an aircraft that had fleas on the seat. seats. No, you could see him jumping off the seats.
Really?
Yeah, it was despicable.
Maybe it'd been used by those naked Florida people.
Maybe, and we were flown to Benghazi, which is on the like a coastal town.
Yeah,
and they showed us allegedly the bombing there, except it all looked a bit false. Considering there was a wagon that had come from the mortuary with two blokes tossing bodies onto the rubble from the back of the lorry, to try and make
it
out.
Look as if they actually died there.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So that was,
You didn't fall for that then?
No, I didn't fall for it. No.
Well done.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Now we've got lots more to do. Terry Fenwick's coming up. Mark says this: Roy Orbison wore dark glasses because he was cross-eyed, and he was advised to wear them by his manager.
Is that right?
That may well be the case.
Cross-eyed? I didn't know dark glasses improved your cross-eyed
Well, it does.
problem.
It means people can't see them.
Yeah, I suppose people don't laugh at you, like they would if you're cross-eyed, goofy, you know what I mean? Or something like that, There are cruel people about.
There are many cruel people. Luckily, we're not two of them.
Exactly.
This is Talk Sport. Sport. We are the two mics. Coming up in the next hour, there will be, of course, some talk about what goes on in the Brexit situation as far as the cost of players is concerned, and transfers and the Bosman ruling and everything else. Nobody really knows the answers to much of it, but we're going to try and get some answers from Stefan Zimanski, Professor of Sports Management at the University of Michigan. Right now, though, we're going to have a look back on not just England's performance during the Euros, but the press conference yesterday, which was completely shambolic, with Terry Fenwick, former international, of course. Terry, very good morning to you.
How are you guys?
Yeah, very good.
Welcome back to the show. I don't know if you had a chance to see the FA's press conference with Roy Hodgson, where he said he didn't know why he was there, but let's ask you first of all what you made of the Iceland game.
Quite shocking. I thought we were awful. Poor player selection. Team didn't know. There wasn't a game plan that jumped out at me. I couldn't see what we were trying to do with the ball. Couldn't see how we were trying to defend without the ball, and several individuals in the team that I can't believe started.
Who are they, Steve? Who are they?
Well, I just think you've got to look at Hart, the goalkeeper. And
well, did you have that thought before the game? In all fairness, I mean, I said at the go on.
I've been on several websites, social media. You see, the problem is it's not just him. If he's letting soppy goals in, which he is, it affects the whole back four in front of him. Yeah. There's no confidence there, and then the guys then will make mistakes.
Yeah. What did you make of his being all pumped up, Joe Hart? Because, before the game started, he's in the tunnel, he's looking like he's ready to sort of take on a grizzly bear. He's absolutely, got adrenaline flowing through his veins. A lot of players, or ex-players after that, said he needs to calm down a bit. Why is he so worked up?
Well, I hear that, but it's all about keeping clean sheets, isn't it? I mean, I played in front of some of the best goalkeepers, and notably David Seaman was outstanding, and he was such an easygoing, mild-mannered man. He could be playing in front of 100,000, and you'd think he was playing in the park. Yeah. Peter Shilton was a different animal altogether. He was another one that built himself up for games big. But then he performed big. Ray Clements, another one. Now, I can't see... He's like lettuce wrists at the moment. Everything down his left side goes through his wrists into the net.
Yeah, it's true.
We're giving away ridiculous goals that, at the level that we're playing and the standard of the players that we've got, shouldn't happen. Yeah. And, of course, the rebound in that one is you've also got people like Forrester in the background wondering why he's not getting a chance.
Well, I had a conversation with Harry Redknapp before the competition and said Fraser Forster would be my choice because of his size. And particularly against Iceland, Steve, they are a very big team. I mean, you've looked at them, but I mean, they're
tall.
Tall and bulky and needing a goalkeeper of equivalent size to challenge them in the area and to be a presence on the line.
Well, come on, Joe Hart's a big guy as well. What is he, 6'5", Joe Hart?
But no, I don't think he is.
Well, he's minimum 6'4". He's not small.
Yeah, but Fraser Forster's 6'7".
He's not small.
Yeah.
You see, what we're talking about here, guys, it's not physique, stature. It's confidence. and abilities.
Sure.
Now, the kid at Southampton has had a great last 2 months of the Premiership season and kept loads of clean sheets, and he's right up for it. Why wasn't he given the chance?
Yeah. But that's the other question, isn't it, Terry? I mean, Roy Hodgson seemed to be very out of sorts yesterday at the press conference, like he didn't feel he needed to answer any questions. He'd already given his statement the night before. He didn't feel like he sort of basically owed anybody anything. But in the 4 years that he's been in charge, the England team and their performances have got worse, haven't they?
Yeah, well, I think Roy Hodgson, this has gone back to World Cup in Brazil, I think he's lost his ball.
Yeah.
I don't think he knows how to manage big players. Now, at the end of the day, Premiership is the top league in the world.
Yeah. We've
got a great squad of players, but they've got to start winning games and tournaments, and we don't look anywhere near that at the moment. And I think if the coach, if the manager, if they've got no balls, the players will see right through that, and that is infectious. All of a sudden, none of us have got any balls.
Well, when you watched, when you watched that game, Terry, against Iceland, in the second half, when it was getting more and more kind of desperate to try and get an equaliser, you could see somehow almost the confidence draining away from the players by the minute. You know, they were making mistakes.
Absolutely.
They couldn't pass the ball. They couldn't control the ball. They didn't know where to pass it to. I mean, it was incredible to watch. It was almost like, you know, a collective nervous breakdown.
I couldn't agree more. I think our passing was absolutely disgraceful. Our set plays, free kicks were awful. Yeah. And I think, again, that comes down to confidence. He keeps on going on about, well, we've got the youngest squad in the tournament. Listen, this is not about development.
Well, they're not in the tournament anymore, are they?
Under 17, under 20 is development. The England national side's about winning.
Yeah.
Well, it should be, but it's not, I'm afraid.
I think he's lost the plot on that side of it. I think a long time ago he lost the respect of the players because he didn't make big decisions with players that weren't performing, and he's persisted with the same characters that have not performed well.
Yeah, and also, Steve,
I just eroded the confidence of the squad.
I just think he's too old. I think he's too old to literally, you know, communicate with some of those lads who are in their early 20s. Because I look at him and I see an old man running around in a tracksuit with spindly legs, and I'm thinking this doesn't work.
Doesn't work, no. Not at all.
You think his legs are particularly spindly?
Again,
well, they are when you see him in shorts. He looks like a pensioner running around, you know, like a job.
Well, just because he hasn't got big bloated calves like you've got.
A figure of fun.
Yeah.
So, Mike, you've got to have a big, serious look at the English FA.
Of course.
We continuously put the same types of people at the head of our football, and they never deliver. We've gone into a tournament with a great squad of players. Great squad of players.
Yeah.
That at their club level, listen, with the exception of one or two, Hart, notably, Sterling, notably, the rest of them are playing at the top of their game.
Should be.
And when they get there, they are destroyed because there's no confidence coming from the management of the team.
Yeah.
It's the old school tie all over again. And it's about time we put somebody in there. Listen, I'll make a statement here tonight. If that was Sam Allardyce, we get the semi-finals easy.
Now, Porky, you said you liked
Sam
it.
would have been bollock and bite.
You said you wanted Sam Allardyce earlier on, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I think Sam Allardyce would be perfect. I mean, Sam Allardyce did a brilliant job rescuing Sunderland. He's done a brilliant job in the past at West Ham. You know, he got West Ham back into the Premier League. He never really got the credit he deserved for that. I think he's a first-class man, but the problem is these days, Steve, people like this Dan Ashworth character, the man whose last job involved getting rid of Captain Birdseye, right, at the frozen food company.
That's right, he did, yeah.
He did. In the frozen food world, he decided, you know, it was the end of the road for Captain Birdseye, you know, favourite characters in British advertising. He's now going to be in charge of choosing a new manager, and it's ridiculous.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more, but you look, the English game is too powerful. The Premiership, the English FA, they've got to be accountable these days. Look at the social media today, they're getting ripped to pieces. And quite rightly so, they've got to be accountable. At the end of the day, there's millions and millions of pounds going into development of football in the UK. And we cannot get past Iceland. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? Let me ask you a couple of questions that are kind of the questions on everyone's lips at the moment. One is, should Wayne Rooney not retire from international football? I mean, he said that he wants to play through the World Cup, presuming England qualify for Russia in 2018. They probably will. Do you think Wayne Rooney should keep playing?
I think that's his call. I think he's still an excellent player, don't get me wrong, but he's not nearly the influence that we need him to be. And if he's not being that, his passing against Iceland was atrocious.
Yeah.
Now, that's when you need, he's definitely, in my eyes, and this is just an opinion, he's not a Tony Adams. He's not somebody that demands from his team and he comes to the front when the chips are down and makes things happen. And I don't see Wayne Rooney as that.
Yeah, and he's not a Brian Robson. I was just about to say that as well. Funnily enough, Terry. And what about the next question? You said you fancy the idea of Sam Allardyce. Is there any point in giving Gareth Southgate a sort of job as a caretaker manager in the meantime?
I don't think there is.
What is the point?
Yeah, exactly.
What is the point?
Exactly.
You see, look, guys, look at what we've just done. We went to World Cup in Brazil, and we came out with all these rubbish excuses about young squad and development and all that. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Win games.
Yeah, no.
We spent £760 million over 4 years developing the national side.
Yeah.
Costa Rica, 4.3 million US. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And they get the semi-finals.
Absolutely.
That is about top-class managers
that
are strong enough to stand up to their players. If you're not playing, you're out.
Yeah. Terry, what do you think about Arsene Wenger being nominated as the new England manager? I just don't get that. I simply don't understand it.
Well, you're going back to the old boys brigade all over again.
Maybe.
Unfortunately, I think there's more people out there that should have got a chance. You look back over the years, the Cluffies, Terry Venables never got as long as he should have got. Terry, a great manager. We keep on tripping ourselves up, and that's just at the top. We need to sort the top out first before we look any further.
I think absolutely
totally
agree. Terry, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us. We've got lots more coming up. In the next hour, we're going to be talking about the Bosman rule, how Brexit's going to affect the sale or otherwise of footballers inside and outside of Europe. This is TalkSport.
UEFA Euro 2016 France.
It's not unusual to see England crashing out.
And England are out!
They're going home, but still, Wales have got to shout.
Wales does it again!
Come on, Gareth Aaron and Ashley Williams.
Wales lead!
Go beat the Belgians with our support.
Wales,
here on TalkSport.
For uninterrupted commentary of Wales versus Belgium.
Friday night from 8 on TalkSport.
This is TalkSport. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on. Stefan Szymanski is going to join us a little bit later on, Professor of Sport Management at the University of Michigan. So if you call him Steve, technically you won't be wrong.
No, exactly. What's his name again?
Stefan.
Stefan, OK,
so if you call him Steve, he probably won't mind.
Yeah, well, don't make a lot of that. You know, it's just a simple mistake. You know, it's not a problem. It's not a problem.
It's not a simple mistake. It's people saying on Twitter, why does Porky call everyone Steve?
Yeah, well, you know, it might be just a mental aberration or something like that.
Could be that, yeah.
Anyway, look, I'll tell you what the situation is now. There are so many people now who are being mentioned, named, considered for the job, ranging from Arsene Wenger, which I think is ridiculous.
And all the back pages have got Wenger, haven't they? Why would they?
I don't know. I've no idea. We'll talk about tomorrow morning's papers.
Yeah.
Steve Bruce, which is not a bad shout. That's he's been nominated in. Sorry,
that'd be good for you.
Yeah, Steve. Yeah. He's been nominated in one publication. The other names that come up.
I don't think Steve Bruce is up to it. Do you?
Well.
I don't mean any disrespect.
I think he's got a very good track record, and I think he's got a nice way about him. He's a good man manager. I'd still prefer Sam Allardyce. But other names popping up. Gareth Southgate appears to be the guy who's going to caretake whatever happens, which I think is ridiculous.
And presumably there will be World Cup qualifiers in, September, October time?
Of course there are. Yeah. That's the first half doesn't be played.
So he could be in charge of them?
Yeah, it could be. And as I say, if the first half doesn't be played, by the time a permanent manager comes in 12 months' time, other people being nominated are
I've seen Jurgen Klinsmann's name being mentioned.
Yeah, well, I was going to mention that
to you the other day.
I was going to mention that to you. I was going to say that I wouldn't nominate Jurgen Klinsmann, but he's one who's been mentioned.
Yeah.
And basically, there's so much sort of I don't know, confusion about the sort of man they're looking for, you haven't got any confidence they're going to get it right, because they never got it right in the past.
Well, exactly. And you're absolutely right to say they don't know what they're looking for, because that's the main problem. It's like we've said before, because England don't know what system they're playing, none of the players really understand how England are supposed to play.
Yes.
You know, we know how Spain play, we know how Italy play, we know how Germany play, etc. We don't know how England play. So, I mean, first of all, surely if they've got this elite development thing going on, they should have a very good idea of how they want the team to turn out.
I agree. In fact,
what sort of football they want them to play.
I agree. In fact, Jamie Carragher, who carries a lot of weight through his work as a football pundit, he's actually nominated Jurgen Klinsmann. He says Jurgen Klinsmann would be the man for him. But I just don't see that. One interesting thing as well was there's an explanation in some of the papers about the confusion and chaos which reigned in the stadium after the game. You know, so did you see that Roy Hodgson went over and smiled broadly to his to Lagerson, a guy he's known for 30 years apparently, shook hands, disappeared down the tunnel. So did Gary Neville and so did Lewington. He then cobbled together the resignation statement.
So you still don't think that he had that prepared?
Well, according to reports, he didn't.
Right.
He then called on a messenger to get up to the VIP area and get Martin Glenn and Dan Ashworth down to the dressing room.
Right.
He went into a quiet area of the dressing room, you know, behind a sort of, you know, a cubicle or something, and explained to them he was leaving and that the other two were leaving as well. And then said he was only going to make one statement on it, went up and made the statement. And then apparently the FA media team spent all night last night trying to persuade him to come back and make some proper explanation.
Later on, yesterday, as it
Yes,
were.
that's right. And he kept saying that despite, he didn't say despite the fact I've earned 14 million, but the point was put to him, after being paid £14 million over 4 years, it needs a bit more of a full explanation at the end, and not the churlish, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Exactly.
But he didn't seem to accept that.
He started off as he obviously meant to continue. I mean, I'm not going to criticise the assembled hacks who were there, but then nobody really asked him a killer question.
No.
Nobody asked him anything that was in any way putting him on the spot.
What could they have asked him?
Well, I would have asked him, for example, why did you bring so many unfit players who had clearly not had enough game time?
Yeah.
And I put that out on Twitter, and I think that would have been, because that would have covered, why did you bring Jack Wilshere?
I don't think he'd be take questions, I'm pretty sure.
Well, he took a couple, didn't he? Because a question was asked about the player revolt, and then as he was halfway around to answering it, somebody then said, oh, actually, that's been denied. Wayne Rooney's put a statement out saying there was no player revolt, and all the players were fully behind him and all of this.
I think he was being very selective, because, our hacks are the best in the world, and I'm sure...
but they sometimes don't, when they're in that situation, they don't go for the jugular, some of those guys.
Well, he was dead in the water, man. He's a dead man walking.
But
he'd already quit.
But we do actually officially, and I hate to say this phrase, we do actually officially have to learn some lessons from this and say, well, why did you bring Jack Wilshere? Why did you not play Ross Barkley?
Why did you change 6 men for the Slovakia game?
Why didn't John Stones get a game? Why did you persist with Raheem Sterling? Why, if Harry Kane was burned out, why did you keep playing him?
Why did you ever consider Joe Hart being replaced because of his original blunder, never mind, against Wales, And then one rather amusing counter side to it is that Gary Neville was apparently so distraught or confused or whatever.
Well, he's had a bad year, hasn't he?
He walked out of the ground and got on the Iceland team coach.
What?
He walked out of the ground because he was... Gary Neville's not very communicative to the media. It never has been. And he tends to blank them. And you have to come out through the mix zone, which is an area where, there's a fence, there's railings, and the hacks stand this side, and the players have to pass through on the other side to be available to the press.
But a lot of them now just put headphones on, don't they?
Or switch their phone on and pretend they're talking to somebody or something like that. OK, that's fair enough. Gary Neville just whooshes straight out and jumped onto the Iceland team coach, according to one report. Can't say that definitely happened, but it's...
how bizarre. How about this from Dan? And you'll like this one. He says, how about Tim Sherwood? He did a good job at Spurs, an impossible job reasonably well at Villa, and he's got plenty of passion. You're not a massive fan of Tim as a ready-made England manager, though, I would imagine.
Not as a ready-made England manager, although I thought at Spurs he was quite good. I thought he was quite refreshing, breath of fresh air, and maybe at Villa, well, he couldn't have done any worse than his replacement at Villa, could he?
No.
He might have been able to rescue something of the season had he stayed there, and I thought he was dismissed far too early.
Exactly right. Should we have a word?
And I still think he'll be a good manager again sometime.
Yeah, I think so. Let's have a word with a couple of fans.
Indeed.
Paul is an Arsenal fan from Hayes. Paul, very good morning to you.
Hi, morning.
Yeah, morning.
Hi,
What would you like to say, Paul?
I think, well, all I'd like to say is that I think that obviously we're in a dire situation as a country on the international scene. And as always, you media guys are using a very short-sighted view
Oh, are we?
Of the way that we need to take the country forward.
Well, how do you mean? What's short-sighted about wanting to win?
Well, all I say is the same old story, like criticise this, criticise that, criticise that.
Well, what are you supposed to do? You're supposed to give them a round of applause for the most appalling tournament that we've ever played at?
No, we've got to understand that if we've produced the worst performance that we've ever produced, we've got to look at the grassroots of where our...
Yeah, we said all this after Brazil, though, for heaven's sake, Paul. Did. And nothing was done. So the people at the top of the FA don't know what they're doing.
We haven't done anything since '66.
That's not true. That's not true, because every single time there's been a failure... because every single time, Paul, there's been a failure in a tournament, the FA have come out and said, we're going to do an inquest, we're going to find out what went wrong, and they never do anything.
Of course they have. All we've done since 1966 is castigate managers.
Not true. Incorrect. No, incorrect, Paul. What we've done is find managers who have not worked. They have been selected by... We have been selected... Hang on a second. They've been selected by the FA, right? And the FA have consistently then found out that it didn't work, and then they've gone off and selected somebody else and said that they're going to learn lessons from what went wrong, and they haven't learned anything.
You're telling... Right, OK, so you've had your say, now I'll have my say.
OK.
Right. So you're telling me for the last 50 years we haven't produced good enough players to win tournaments?
That's not what I said.
Are you
I
really
said the FA.
That?
I said the no. That's not what I'm saying. I said the FA have failed. How have I said anything about the players?
No, hold on. You had your say.
No, but you've misinterpreted what I said, Paul.
No, I haven't. I've thrown your question back at you like you do on a regular basis.
Well, I'll tell you what. Here's a question for you. At what point did I say the players have not been good enough to win a tournament? I have never said that. The players are good enough to win a tournament.
Okay,
the FA has failed consistently.
Why haven't we won a tournament?
Because of manage. Well, if you ask the question 5 times, I'll give you the same answer. The point is that basically, the managers who have been in charge have done fair to middling, but most recently very badly. Fair to middling, and recently very badly at motivating the team. That's why.
Look, I'm talking in the 80s. When we had a girth...
What are you talking about the 80s for? What's the point of talking about the 80s? It's now 2016.
We'll talk about the 80s.
Why do you want to talk about the 80s?
Well, Bobby Robson was in the 80s and nobody castigated him. Nobody castigated him.
Hold on.
Well, I don't know what point you're trying to make.
Yeah, what's your point, Paul?
Look. Well, if you let me talk...
Well, you keep talking rubbish, though.
Yeah, say something.
Oh, I'm talking rubbish, am I?
Say something. Go on.
Glenn Hoddle was considered as a luxury player, where in any other country... a team would have been built round him. Come back to that one.
What? Well, I don't know what your point is.
Yeah. What is your point?
You came on telling us that we were short-sighted. You came on telling us we were short-sighted, but you don't seem to have any sight whatsoever. Paul, thanks for your call. We will debate this, I'm sure, some more. We've got more calls to take. This is TalkSport, 08717 22 3344. TalkSport, we are the two mics. Charles says this: eyes burned by the summer sun, or Biloxios eaten by ants, or listening to Porky singing. No contest.
Really?
Tim says, what about Klinsmann, Bilic, Rafa, Hoddle? All better bets for England manager than Southgate. And somebody also suggesting that when you supposedly go for no stone unturned, you don't find yourself at Southgate, which I think is more or less true. That is a bit of a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, that seems to be the most common piece of information that we've got tonight, that Gareth Southgate will become a caretaker manager. Now, the danger is, there, Mike, is that regularly England managers have no problem brushing aside minnows like Belarus and that sort of thing in qualifying competitions.
Right. And that doesn't help either, really, does it?
So we could end up getting San Marino, Luxembourg, Belarus, right. Gareth Southgate suddenly chalks up 6 victories and we're back in the Roy Hodgson mould of, wow, this guy's doing very well. And it's same with Fabio Capello. Fabio Capello won all his games in the qualifiers before we went to South Africa, and then we had an appalling tournament.
But you have to say, as much as we've talked endlessly about the players and about the previous managers and all of that, the one constant in all of this, right, Fabio Capello was a great manager at club level. Roy Hodgson has done some things in other countries which have been better than anything he's done in England. Almost everyone that England seems to get gets hit with the sort of dead hand of nothingness.
Yes.
And that has to come from the FA, I think.
Yes.
I wonder if that's true. Let's have a word with Dave, who's over in Sydney. Dave, very good morning to you.
Yeah. Oh, good morning.
Yeah, what would you like to say?
Well, I absolutely agree with what you've just said there. I mean, the constant in this is the FA. They've failed time and time and time again.
Yep.
And they failed again this time around. And for me, I think the answer is obvious. I think that they need to appoint a new head of the FA. And for me, I would make that Arsene Wenger.
Why? Arsene Wenger's got no loyalty to this country.
Well, he's lived here for a long enough time.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. He's consistently said, I'm not going to do anything in my squad at Arsenal to advantage England.
Well, let's ask Dave why, then. Why, Dave?
Well, I think that I don't think he's the right man for the coach's job, but I think he's an excellent man to build from the top as the FA. I think he's done a fantastic job when he took over at Arsenal, and back in, I think it was 96. He... they moved to new premises. He had a whole new philosophy. He turned Arsenal around from a real old dinosaur into a really excellent modern thinking, a football club. And you talk to people like Glenn Hoddle, and he has enormous respect for him. And I think that he would be exactly the sort of man at the top of the FA. Yes, look, ideally you'd have the man would be English, but we don't have that right now. But what we do have, for me, is an obvious choice.
I don't think he'd do it anyway. I don't think he'd do it anyway, mate.
There's no evidence for that, and I think as much as we could probably have, and Mike Parry's right. I hate to admit, I think you can have as many foreign managers of the team as you like, but I think the English FA probably needs to have an English chief executive. I'm not sure that you can get an English, a non-English chief executive. But here's the thing that I wanted to raise with you earlier, Porky, where Hodgson said in his press conference yesterday, we have a major bridge to repair. He said, had we played better last night, i.e. in the Iceland game, that might not need repairing. Now, anyone that has that kind of attitude is clearly not got a clue about what he's doing. I mean, you don't, just because you get one victory, suddenly not have to fix the bridge.
Yeah, and also, Mike, his sense of self-awareness, he's clearly missing there.
Yeah.
Because if he thought he could have put a bit of sticking plaster on the Iceland result, because they might have got an equaliser in the last minute and then won after extra time on penalties or something like that, he's deluded. The man is deluded. Yeah. And also, this, the more you get into this and see his attitude yesterday, his reluctance to speak openly, the more infuriated we're all getting about his belligerent attitude in failure.
Yeah.
I mean, at least, I'll tell you Graham Taylor, right? Graham Taylor, I've worked with Graham Taylor on radio programmes, all that kind of stuff. An extremely engaging chap.
Yeah.
But when he finally got the boot because of another failed campaign, and remember his most ignominious moment...
Ignominious
moment was when we conceded to San Marino after 24 seconds, you remember?
Yeah.
At least when he went down with a smile on his face and said, look, OK, I gave it a try. I didn't make it. Now the job's somebody else, and somebody else can go for it. And he even came out of the FA the day after he resigned because he'd been in to see something to say, it's OK, they've reappointed me. Yeah. He made a joke about it, you know what I mean?
Right.
But he didn't say to anybody, don't be nasty to me.
Because you pay, I mean, you pays your money, you takes your choice, I'm afraid. If you get paid £3.5 million a year, turn up, show up, and basically defend yourself.
Exactly.
And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't take the job in the first place.
Exactly.
How about Gus Hiddink, says Nick, if you're going short term, and make Southgate his number 2, which is not bad. And I like this one from Ian.
Yeah.
He says, how about Tom Hiddleston for England, a manager with Taylor Swift as his assistant? By the way, does Porky have an update on their relationship?
Well, yes, I do, actually, because she's...
they were in Norfolk or somewhere.
No, Suffolk, in Aldborough.
Oh, yeah. Do you know there?
Sorry? Well, that's very close to my Orwell Quay pad,
Right.
It's just up the coast.
You should have offered them the use of your lavish boat.
I'd have been happy to, and in fact it is Mr Brazil territory, it's around there, that sort of thing. But she flew in, apparently, a plane into a local military airfield.
Well, not Stansted.
Not Stansted, no, because, military airfields can be, like, you can pay fees to land there and all that kind of stuff, provided they're not top secret and all that kind of stuff.
Well, especially since we've got no military planes anymore.
Well, exactly, yeah.
That's still a good reason.
Yeah, all these guys are standing around, apparently, and saying, what's that coming out the sky,
No, exactly
Seems to have hit the tarmac.
Exactly right. Let's take one more call. Ronnie's a Man United fan in Birmingham. Ronnie, hi.
Hi, how you doing? You all right?
Yeah, very well.
We're doing well, Ronnie.
What would you like to say, Ronnie?
To be honest, I've just seen a completely different side to Hudson today.
Yeah.
You looked all this Mr. Nice guy, get on with everyone, loyalty, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And he just come out as an arrogant. He just looks so arrogant.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
See, I've always
That's
believed
a good
that.
description.
I've always believed that. Arrogant and stubborn and, not interested in taking any advice.
Yeah, you know what? He's tactically inept. Yesterday, I was crying at 60th minute. At half-time, you're thinking, bring Vardy on.
Yeah.
And then he brings Wilshere on. And then you're thinking, bring Rashford on. Rashford, 18-year-old.
Yeah.
I watched him for United. And, you always have these question marks, especially when you see people like Makeda and things like that. But the biggest person, Hodgson, missed himself as well back because he stretched his team, got the legs, and Rashford could have done that for him.
Yes.
Especially with Sterling. Sterling was awful in the whole tournament. But I think, you look at so much about how the FA, etc., everything needs a revamp. And I'm going to say, I think David Gill should be head of FA, to be perfectly honest with you, because he's top at what he does.
Yeah.
But to be honest, you know what it is? England, they think they're better than they actually are. You've got a few decent players there, but...
But also, Ronnie, isn't it true to say that they should be better than they are, in the sense of the individuals that we've got?
The individuals, like Dele Alli, Harry Kane, people like that, they've had good seasons. Jamie Vardy scored 25 goals. But they're playing so narrow, and you expect so much from Kyle Walker and Rose because you're playing so narrow. You want Kyle Walker and Rose to bomb up and down, and create for you. But it doesn't work that way. You've got to have the win.
Yeah, but Ronnie, England were playing against players, right? One guy couldn't get into the Cardiff team. Another guy played for Charlton, who just got relegated. It's not a question of whether they're talented enough, because they certainly are talented enough for the international stage, but they're not being coached properly.
The England team lacks identity, pretty much. Yeah. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what... I know people say, Wenger should come in philosophy, blah, blah, blah. But Wenger's a club manager. He's not an international manager. You don't get to see your players as much as an international manager.
No.
How often do you see him in a year?
Well, I mean, that's a very good point. It's Ronnie, very, very good point there. I've always thought that one of the problems with being England manager is it's a part-time job. And when you've got breaks between batches of qualifying games, you might have 2 games in a week, right? But then you might not see the players for another 3 or 4 months. It is almost a part-time job. And I think they should develop some kind of a structure to accommodate a part-time manager, because I don't know what a full-time England manager does.
Maybe we could find a decent dentist to do that.
Well, I mean, other names that are bouncing around are people like Slaven Bilic, right? Now, Slaven Bilic, I think, would be
but, I mean, he'd be crazy to leave West Ham to become the England manager.
Of course he would, because the involvement you get in a day-to-day job at West Ham, in a new stadium, dealing with massive revenues now to buy players and all sorts of things, it's much more exciting than being an England manager.
Of course it is. And you do have to say, regardless of whether people are on the side of the media or not, it is a very, very much, in the eye of the hurricane type job.
Of course it is.
And if you haven't got the type of personality to do it, you would probably shy away from it.
I totally agree. I mean? Eddie Howe is being bounced around as a name.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Well,
I don't know why.
I like Eddie a lot, and you and I have seen him at close quarters when we've been down to Bournemouth and all that. There's one suggestion,
more disturbingly, he's seen us at close quarters.
He has indeed, I'm afraid, in the Bubbles bar.
Yeah.
But they're saying, what about Eddie Howe and somebody like Steven Gerrard? Well, if you're going to go down that route, surely Gary Neville will be...
Oh, no, I think Gary Neville's a busted flush now.
Do you think he is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Do you think he's no future in international management?
Not for a long time. I think he needs to go somewhere, have some success, and then maybe come back. I don't think he can go back to Sky now.
He should never have left Sky, should he?
I know. I mean, talk about David Cameron writing his own death
absolutely.
I mean, Gary Neville's done the same
thing.
A
year ago, Gary Neville was lauded as the greatest pundit this country had ever seen on TV. Incisive, tough talking, eloquent, and all that kind of stuff. Talking against mates who used to play with and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A year on, his whole reputation's completely shattered.
In tatters, absolutely right. Now, I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts, because coming up next, we're going to talk about the Boswell rule and Brexit and all of that, and how it affects football. Yeah. One from Paul. How about Kenny Dalglish for England manager? Interesting thought. And this one I like even better. Thomas, Porky, what about Sir Alex Ferguson becoming head of the FA? No, he would take no rubbish from anyone.
He's said many times he wouldn't do it. He said he couldn't do it because of his loyalties to Scotland, and it would upset too many people.
Well, there goes that
idea. That goes out the window.
Thanks for playing, as it were. Now, coming up next, we're going to find out what football is going to suffer from if this whole Brexit thing goes ahead.
Indeed.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. Ask Porky coming up in the next hour or so. We've already got a lot of questions to ask Mr. Parry, but if you've got anything that you urgently need solved or a quandary that you've always been wondering what the answer is then you need to look at our Facebook page, The Two Mikes, or indeed follow us on Twitter at The Two Mikes and send a question in there. Now, Brexit, of course, has been the massive kind of debating point, I suppose you might say, since Friday morning, since the British population decided to vote to leave the European Union. One of the things that could be affected quite a lot by that is the free movement of football players within European countries, because, of course, you know, the Premier League probably employs more foreign players than any other league in the world. So we're going to talk now to a man called Stefan Szymanski, Professor of Sport Management at the University of Michigan, to find out how Brexit might actually affect the football business. Stefan, a very good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No, not at all. Thank you very much for coming. Now, there's a few kind of obvious answers that we don't know yet, because there doesn't seem to be anybody, as I said at the top of this show, being in charge of the clattering train. I mean, nobody seems to know whether, you know, there's going to be another referendum, whether, you know, there's going to be a deal done with Brussels which allows Britain to leave the European Union but continues to have, you know, special member status or something like that. What's your sort of thinking at the moment on how the football business will be affected?
Well, I think broadly there are two possibilities, it seems, here at the moment. So one possibility is that we go for Norway status, which means we are basically agree to all of the rules and regulations of the European Union, but we're not actually a member. That would mean free movement of labour. Of course, many of the Leave campaigners are saying that's unacceptable because it wouldn't give Britain any real control over immigration anyway. But if that were the solution, and it's the solution that would most likely safeguard the economy, then nothing would change. The Premier League would be unaffected. Then the second possibility is that we leave in a more complete sense, in which case we won't have the same kind of free trade deals that we have at the moment. We won't have the same access, which will be probably very damaging to the UK economy. And it would also mean that European players would no longer have the automatic right to play in the UK. And that could affect a number of players. They would need work permits. Now, the question is, what some studies were done before the referendum, which showed that there were maybe 200 or 300 players in the UK at the moment who are European and would not meet the international requirements for non-EU players laid down by the Home Office as it currently is. So that could have quite a significant effect. However, that said, it's quite likely that the Home Office might change its criteria given that the circumstances would be very different, given that they'd be lobbied by the Premier League. So in the end, I think it still might not end up being that different from what we see at the moment.
OK, and have you looked at the implications of the Bosman Rule, Professor? Because that means, doesn't it, that the freedom for players now to, you know, literally shake off the shackles of contractual obligation may have to be reversed.
Well, the current rules and regulations relating to the transfer of players were negotiated in 2001 between FIFA and the European Commission.
Exactly.
Now, the important point there is that it was an agreement with FIFA, the world governing body, not an agreement with UEFA and not an agreement for the European Union. So, I mean, in that sense, that nothing changes for the UK. We're still bound by the same rules and regulations. Although I should mention perhaps that FIFPro, the World Players Union, is actually trying to challenge the current transfer system in the courts, in the European courts anyway.
Sure, but what you mean is, because it's a FIFA rule, it engages around the world no matter what.
That's right. The way in which the point about Bosman that could be relevant here, which is the foreign players quota, and it might be argued that once Britain was outside of the European Union, we wouldn't have to apply. We could apply quotas to the number of foreign players on the field, just as countries, some European countries outside of the European Union already do. I believe Russia, Ukraine already have these kind of arrangements. Now, if we were to do that, though. I mean, that would probably put the FA, who quite like that idea, in direct conflict with the Premier League. So,
it would undoubtedly. You're absolutely right. I mean, all the Premier League clubs want are the best players, and don't care where in the world they are, and they want the minimum amount of legislation to stop players coming here to prevent them becoming a better team.
Right, but isn't that what this referendum has really taught us, is that this is more about internal divisions within the UK than it is to do with the European Union?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Of course it is. It's about how much influence the British government should be subjected to by European powers. But
it's also, we're a nation divided. We have two different opinions. Some of us like being in Europe and some of us don't.
I agree. But I think the Premier League and individual football clubs are laws unto themselves. They don't really care about politics. They don't really care about, the institutions concerned. They just want to get their hands on the world's best players, and they don't want any red tape to get in the way.
But to play devil's advocate here, you might say the FA is only answerable to itself. I mean, it's not an elected body. It's not a very democratic institution. They have a lot of opinions which don't seem to chime with what many people want about football. I mean, if we had a democratic FA, I might be more persuaded that would be a necessary break on the actions of the Premier League. But it seems like we've got two very self-interested groups here, not one.
It seems at the moment, after yesterday's performance in the press conference, that the FA is in just as much of a bad place at the moment as the government is. They don't seem to know what they're doing or where they're going to go next. But I mean, what about the price of players? Because we've heard an awful lot, Stefan, about the devaluing of the pound. It started to come back a little bit yesterday, and the economy in this country is going to be knackered for quite a few years to come. If that is the case, presumably, if the pound doesn't recover much, it could be that clubs are going to have to pay out more money for players.
Well, I mean, but again, the important thing to bear in mind here is the Premier League is just awash with cash. I mean, they now generate twice the revenue of the next nearest competitor, which is the Bundesliga, and they are way ahead of everybody else. And whereas there's no question that with Sterling falling by 10%, that has a significant impact of the cost of acquiring a player from Europe. But relative to the value of the broadcast deal, that's really a drop in the ocean. I think the important point here is, as long as the Premier League continues to be the global league, the one that is watched more or less everywhere in the world, I think it's pretty safe from competition from the rest of Europe.
That may well be the case, but in the long term, do you think that if prices come down in this country, they'll come down around Europe and therefore the world? Because we are dictating the pace, as you quite rightly said, in terms of individual leagues.
I mean, I don't see prices coming down. I see more and more spending. I mean, the history of football is the history of clubs spending every penny they get on buying the best players they can afford. And frankly, I think that's been in the best interests of all of us who like to watch football, because football has got better and better, it seems to me, over the last 30, 40 years, as more money has come into the game. Yeah. So I don't see any reason to think that that's going to change. And I think perhaps the more interesting question is this: would the exit of Britain from the European Union, would it actually provoke the big leagues in Europe to try and get together and construct a genuine competitive rival to the Premier League? Because right now, frankly, in terms of league competition, there's no one who's even close in terms of being able to attract fans. Maybe not winning European trophies, but in terms of attracting an audience, they're way behind.
Yeah, no, I totally get. And just to develop that point, Prof, that you just made there, you said that the clubs spend all their money on acquiring players and then paying them huge salaries to make sure they don't go to another club. Why do so many American investors from the land that you now live and work in buy Premier League clubs when, unless you ratchet it on the gearing system that the Glazers did with Manchester United, you're not going to make any money at Liverpool or Aston Villa or places like that, are you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. You must remember this, that in the 1990s there was a big explosion of clubs floating on the stock exchange. Yeah. Where and that all happened because of Manchester United's flotation in 1991, which was incredibly successful. So everybody then else thought, oh well, we can do the same. Well, that's really, I think, what's happened with the Americans. They saw the Glazers, who actually made a financial killing. for all, I know this makes Manchester United fans really angry, but the fact of the matter is that is one of the most profitable investments that anybody's ever made.
Indeed.
In sports. And I think a lot of Americans have been drawn in on the back of that, thinking, well, they could do the same. And of course, and it's no one else has done nearly so well as the Glazers have done.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they keep on coming. I guess, one of the arguments that's currently being made is that as the pound devalues, actually it gets cheaper to invest in Britain. Once people work out that it's not necessarily going to be unstable, then presumably it will be a better investment as well.
Well, again, here's the proposition I would put to you, that in the last 30 years, the Premier League has become incredibly attractive. It's become that the quality of football has increased dramatically. We've benefited from having the best players in the world come to play in our league. And this is all thanks to the fact that it has been completely open and competitive, and anybody can come in, anybody can buy in, but in the end, you have to spend money to make it competitive. Anything we do to put obstacles up, whether it's obstacles to players moving to our country or whether we put obstacles in the way of foreigners owning our football teams, that will only reduce the quality. Now, maybe there are some purists who would say, I'd rather watch, 11 English bozos run around the field rather than watch foreigners play elegant football. And if that's what you believe, then good luck to you. But I personally would actually think I like what the English Premier League has become, because I think it's great to watch.
I think as you say, Stefan, the figures prove it. Stefan, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed for talking to us. Stefan Szymanski there, Professor of Sports Management at the University of Michigan. Fascinating conversation, that.
But why were you so lacking in respect for the prof?
What do you mean?
Well, he's Professor, and you kept calling him Steve.
I called him Stefan.
Stefan, you keep calling him Stefan.
No, you keep calling people Steve.
No.
You called Terry Fenwick Steve.
No.
You called Steve Sherwood Steve.
Stefan,
whose name's Tim.
Stefan Szymanski, who we've just spoken to, is a professor of sport management at the University of Michigan.
Yes, exactly.
And therefore you should address him as Prof or Professor.
Prof?
Yeah, not as Stefan. Yeah, of course I do.
I'll tell you what, we'll get him back on in a little while.
Yeah.
Maybe not tonight.
Yeah.
And we'll ask him if he doesn't mind being called Stefan.
I think it's incredibly insulting
sounds
to,
like
this
very democratic sort of chap.
This chap comes on from America on a good line. We've got a great conversation with him, and you're belittling the man by calling him Steph.
Well, all I can say is I'm very happy that you managed to get his name right.
Yeah.
For the first time tonight.
I just don't think you're doing the image of TalkSport any good when you're treating these people with so little respect.
Yeah, OK. Keep taking the tablets. Now, apparently, coming up in the next hour, we're going to have Ask Porky. So I hope you've got your advice hat on.
Oh, yes, I have, certainly,
very wide-ranging questions.
Excellent.
A lot of great questions and some superb, sort of up-to-the-minute, politically switched on and switched on in the sporting sense as well.
Oh, yes, very much so. I expect a few sporting questions tonight because of the week of turmoil we've had.
Absolutely
no doubt about it.
Now, what we haven't talked about yet, which we could talk about and we will probably talk more about in the coming days, is, of course, that basically you've got the quarterfinals coming up. I fear that the first quarterfinal will actually be the worst of the lot. Portugal against Poland.
What, in terms of a dull game? I know what you're saying. Portugal always seem to sort of peter out like a
Portugal have
flush.
not played well at all.
No,
they've somehow managed to get themselves through.
Well, they've got Ronaldo, haven't they? He scores brilliant goals, headers and free kicks and that sort of thing,
Well, we may explore this a little bit more coming up next.
OK.
Right here on TalkSport.
OK.
The Two Mikes. Simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
It's a wonderful night, you gotta take it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, you gotta shake it from me. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down. It's a wonderful night, everybody can see. It's a wonderful night, come on and break it on down.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course, and it is Ask Porky. And of course, as we decided last night, the Porky Quiz is going to be on Iceland. Now, do you know that somebody, because you have whipped people up into a sort of gerrymandering style frenzy,
right?
Somebody actually posted on Facebook a message to you saying, Dear Porky, please, and it was in the guise of an Ask Porky, which it's not really, please ensure that old MG does not gerrymander the quiz to such an extent that it's about Iceland, the shop,
that's right,
rather than Iceland, the country.
Because that's a sort of vicious, nasty thing you do.
That's all the kind of thing, and as you know, I have nothing to do with the questions anyway, but I just wanted to put on record that the quiz is about Iceland, the country. There will be no questions about Iceland, the shop.
OK, thank you.
So just so you're clear.
Yeah, are there any other Icelands knocking about?
I can't speak for the independent
Oh,
quiz
you
masters,
can't, right, OK.
But I'm just making that point to you.
Now, listen, I think you should share with us a rather warm tale about your dog.
Yes, the dog got into a bit of trouble today,
right?
I have to say, because he's been quite well behaved lately.
Yes.
But with the weather being the way it is, he's become quite sort of, shall we say, he likes to get out into the mud and roll around in it and stuff like that.
He's a mischievous little dog.
He gets very excited. He's a huge dog now. That's the problem.
Mischievous
and
dog.
He was taken up for his one of his constitutionals this afternoon,
right?
Which coincided with the kids being picked up from school, because they both go to school about a quarter of a mile away from each other, and then in between the two things is this sort of recreation ground.
I see.
Which has a building in it which has got a gym, but it's also got a tennis club as well.
Right.
And it's quite a posh tennis club, funny enough. Anyway, apparently, and I haven't heard all the details exactly, to the final, paragraph, but basically, he somehow managed to get away from his lead. He may have been off the lead briefly or something like that, but he somehow managed to invade the tennis club.
Yes.
And basically ran around inside the tennis club, outside the tennis club, into the tennis courts.
Yeah.
Started taking tennis balls, running out with them.
This is excellent.
And then get back into the tennis club, get another tennis ball, run back out with it.
And where did he drop it? At the feet of your boys?
Yeah, apparently play had to be suspended.
Right.
In some tournament that was going on in the tennis club.
And this is brilliant because, of course, if a dog sees a ball bouncing around, he thinks you've thrown it for him to recover and to fetch.
He just wants to play.
Yeah.
And he's a very playful dog. But unfortunately, the mother of my children, who was in charge of him at the time, is now completely mortified and swearing that she'll never go anywhere near this tennis club again. Well, she's so embarrassed.
How did the tennis club officials and players react?
Well, I mean,
I hope with warmth and generosity.
I don't think so. No, I think they had to abandon. They had to postpone play or interrupt play. While they had to retrieve all their balls.
Oh, well, it's great to have a little doggy running around. Now, if you damage any of the balls...
But he's not a little dog, that's the point.
Well, he's a big dog, all right,
if he ran into you, he'd knock you over.
Yeah, well, OK, well, that's all right. But
shocking.
It's great. I would love to have been in that tennis club and seen the dog running around. I'd have played chase the ball with him.
Yeah.
Because what I was going to say to you was, funny enough, in one of my journals, which deal with pet behaviour, right... it's a very, very good thing to let a dog off a lead.
Yes.
And owners who keep a dog on the lead too long, it's like putting your dog in prison.
Yes.
Dogs have to have the freedom to run around and feel the air in their face.
Do you remember that scene from Planet of the Apes where...
no.
This is the new version, right?
Oh, yeah.
Which is a great film, by the way. I think it's Rise of the Planet of the Apes. I can't remember exactly which one. But he's got this ape, and he used to take him to the park and everything like that.
Yeah.
And one day, as the ape gets older and older and realises what's going on, he sees somebody walking with a dog on a lead, and he's on a lead as well.
Right.
And he says, "This is how you see me. You think I'm your pet."
Yes.
And that's when all the trouble starts.
Right.
So you're absolutely right. You've got to let them off the lead.
Oh, yeah. Now, you take your dog to a beach, don't you, often?
I do quite often take him to the beach.
And runs up and down?
And he runs... I mean, during the summer months, there's certain parts of the beach he's not allowed on.
Right.
Which is OK. I don't mind that.
Yeah.
And I take him to a quite deserted part of the beach.
Yes.
And I let him off the lead, and he's terrific.
But
and sometimes there's other dogs there, and they run around together.
And play, that's right. And haven't you got a bit of countryside around your home anyway, so he can run around there off the lead?
Yeah, always. I mean, I always take the lead...
Terribly sorry for dogs that are kept on the lead all the time. It's a terrible thing.
It must be difficult, particularly in places now with, like, parks.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Where you're fearful of, like... Because, I mean, if I took him to a park, even down in Sussex or somewhere, you're always fearful that he'll attack... Not attack, but you'll get involved with another dog, and some dog owners don't like it, or there might be a child or something like that. So I always make sure there's nobody else around.
But I'm assuming he's mischievous, and therefore he just wants to run around. And dogs like sniffing out things at the base of trees and all that kind of stuff.
Totally,
they like to be free and all that. And I can't bear... You see, what's happened is, according to my journal, is that the urbanisation of the world, because remember, at one time, 98% of this country was covered in trees, right, in forest.
Yeah.
So dogs just ran wild.
Even in the New Forest,
they had a few trees, and or they had hunting dogs, of course, you know. So, I mean, you're right to mention that, of course, because it was the hunting dog that caused the problem for William the Conqueror's son, who died of the hunting accident.
That's right,
remember?
Yeah, I do remember that.
But anyway, what I was going to say is, with the urbanisation of the country, you have to keep dogs on leads all the time now because, for instance, they might run into the road and get knocked down by a car.
Yeah, that is a possibility.
And as you quite rightly say, they might playfully, mischievously knock a child over, you know, when they only want to have a bit of fun or something like that. And therefore, these dogs are being mentally tortured almost as if they're in prison. And I don't think people who live in, for instance, if I see somebody who lives in an apartment, lives in a flat, for want of a better word.
Well, remember in New York, you used to see those dog walkers that would be walking sort of 15 dogs at once.
Yeah, but they're always on the lead. You can't let a dog loose anywhere in New York. A dog's allowed to run around Central Park.
No, I don't think they are.
I don't think they are. I think
because of the way that life is, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, you know, the local authorities and governments tend to make laws about keeping dogs on leads.
Yeah.
Because some dogs are dangerous and some dogs cannot be controlled, and it can be frightening.
But those dogs are... It's the equivalent to keeping them in a zoo, because if they can't exercise, they also get fat and sloppy, and they get mentally frustrated and all that kind of stuff. It's very, very bad for a dog to be kept in an urban domestic situation, and to keep a dog in any sort of apartment off the ground is wicked.
Yes.
And should be banned, in my view.
Yes. No, I think your instincts are absolutely correct on this one.
Yeah.
But we're going to talk a lot more about that. We've got Ask Porky coming up in the next hour as well. This is Talk Sport. Talk Sport, we are the two mics, and of course we're here all the way through till 4 o'clock?
Yes, that's indeed. Yeah, you won't hear a bad word about Mr. Glenn, the chief executive of the FA.
Yes.
Who got rid of Captain Birdseye.
He did indeed.
When he was running United Foods,
Although
I think.
There's one or two of our female listeners who have posted pictures of the, and Gemma's one of them, posted pictures of the guy who replaced him.
Right.
Not just the polar bear,
but
a much younger looking sort of Captain
who looks
Birdseye.
like the captain of a super yacht.
Yes.
Rather than Captain Birdseye.
And expressing some delight about that.
Admiration, But guess what else Mr. Glenn did in his commercial life as in the food industry?
Oh, yeah, what else did he do?
He gave Gary Lineker the Walker's Crisp contract.
Oh, did he?
Yes.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, that was a good idea.
Well, it was. It worked. It was very commercially very successful, but it's not running a football organisation.
No.
It's running a commercial company that produces millions of packets of crisps.
Maybe you should branch out into kind of, marketing for England sort of merchandise.
Maybe. Somebody said, didn't they? I can't remember who it was. It might have been one of our callers, that the person who should be running the FA is David Gill.
Yes.
Because, of course, David Gill is
he's
a vice-chairman.
Yeah.
And I think he's chairman of the Referees Association as well, the Professional Game Authority or whatever it's called,
Okay.
And some say that he would be the perfect man to step into the job after 10 years as chief executive of Manchester United.
Well, I mean, he was, by all accounts, one of the great strengths of Manchester United.
Yeah, one of the architects
of the... When Sir Alex Ferguson was there.
I agree. They made a great team together, yeah.
But again, I mean, it's also... is it not? I mean, it's not just an FA failing. It's a sort of general British failing, isn't it?
Yes.
They don't seem to... I mean, in a lot of British companies... I mean, look at the companies that have gone bust recently.
Yeah.
People will have their reasons why it happened, but BHS go down the gurgler. What was the other one? Austin Reed, did you say, have gone?
Yeah, Austin Reed's shops have closed.
Sports Direct have
yeah,
had
but I wouldn't worry too much about that. That is just a changing of the guard.
Well, I'm not worried
for instance,
about it. But what I'm saying is an awful lot of the management of companies in this country have been useless. Completely useless.
Well, not necessarily, because...
We look at Tesco's now.
Yes.
Look at Marks and Spencer's.
Yes.
Nowhere near as good as they were.
Well, Sir Terry Lee left Tesco in a position where £1 in every 7 in the high street was spent in a Tesco shop.
Right.
It's now nearly £1 in 12, 13, 14, something like that.
I'm sure.
But, I mean, that's because competition arises and Oldie and Riddle come along, but you wonder how Sir Terence Lee would have reacted to that. We won't never know, because his time was very successful and he's gone off and done other things, and he's now creating other supermarket chains. So some men are just meant for it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
Yeah.
But, I mean, all I worry about is the search for a new manager and maybe the search for a new chief executive of the FA is one of these sort of, hapless jobs.
Yeah.
Because it's not that easy. It's almost like turning around some kind of oil tanker, isn't it? It's not that easy to find people who are sort of... I mean, like Greg Dyke, who thought of himself as this great sort of moderniser.
Yeah, but he couldn't get anything through.
Well, he couldn't get anything done, and maybe some of his ideas weren't that good anyway.
Well, funny enough...
he's gone very quiet, hasn't he, because he's leaving.
Yeah, well, he is leaving, yeah, but I mean, funny enough, I was just trying to sort of work that out, and Greg Dyke would say, literally, that had he been able to get some of his reforms through, he thinks he would have averted the situation that we ran into.
Well, he would say that, wouldn't he?
In France. Well, we'll never know now. We'll never know.
Yeah, but why didn't he get them through? I mean, what was the point of his very highly paid salary if he didn't achieve anything?
To be perfectly honest, Mike, it's very, very difficult to unravel the constitution of the Football Association.
Yeah, I'm sure it is.
The FA Council is literally a parliament of football, right? and the turkeys don't vote for Christmas. They don't vote themselves off the council. No. And the reason they're on the council is that they're antediluvian.
Yeah. And that is a problem.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to change that. But lots of people have got lots of ideas, so keep them coming. You can tweet us, of course, at the 2 Mikes, at Mike Parry 8, at IROMG. Just in case you don't know, our next live show is at Rugby Theatre. You can get tickets through the 2mikes.co.uk or just follow us on Twitter and Facebook. This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 Mikes. There will be a podcast coming out. The referendum fever is gripping a lot of people. Chris says this: the FA should draw up 5 candidates for manager and allow the public to vote for their choice. That way they can avoid blame. Yeah, but we're not about them avoiding blame.
Exactly.
I mean, they should be responsible for their appointments, and they should be held accountable.
Yeah, I think the very issue of referendum is got to be a huge debate.
Yeah.
The old thing about, well, we vote for MPs, it's under Parliament, and they should dictate the legislation in Parliament.
Right.
It's under huge microscope at the moment in government.
Well, as we were talking
football.
as we were talking about yesterday. I mean, it's caused incredible divisions in society.
Of course it does.
And I think that tells us that we're not in any way a mature society and a mature democracy.
Did I avail the listeners of my view on hanging for years and years and years? My mum and dad always said, "Oh no, there's wrong with MPs. 80% of people in this country want to bring back hanging."
Yeah.
It was the staple diet of when I grew up as a child in the north of England. Every time there was a murder, hanging's not good enough for him. Yeah. Bring back hanging, and they always told me.
It still happens now, doesn't it? Whenever there's a particularly horrible murder of a child or something like that.
Funny enough, who was it? I think it was Karen Brady called for the death penalty on a chap recently done for killing his own child, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm saying is, the answer from the politicians was always, because, when you got to the age where you could question it, you'd try and get the answer to it, was, well, the constituents vote for an MP and send him to Parliament, and then Parliament makes law.
Yes.
That was the answer against referendum and all that kind of stuff.
Was it not also, because quite a few tabloid newspapers sort of jumped on the bandwagon at various points, was it not also then proven that actually if there was a referendum on hanging, it probably wouldn't be a yes, because in the end an awful lot more people actually are not in favour of the death penalty than you would think.
I don't know.
A very vociferous minority. But, I don't know either. How about this one from D. Tugwell?
Yes.
He says, Mark Sampson moved to men's team, tournament success, FA exposure.
Who?
Mark Sampson, he's the guy that's been in charge of the women's football team.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know about him.
Mark Sampson.
No.
He's been quite successful.
Yeah.
Barry says, why not just get the dentist who manages Iceland for our next manager, and he can be part-time and keep his dentist job as well?
Well, they seem to have done all right, so, that's not the most ridiculous suggestion we've heard tonight.
David says they have dog exercise areas in some New York City parks. I've seen those in some parks, actually, in this park as well, but they're not so much exercise areas, it's places where they go to do their business.
Yeah, so to speak.
Now, for some reason, you're being attacked by a guy called Jack.
Oh, yeah? What's Jack saying?
Porky thinks he's some superior human being because he drives a large but inefficient German car and lives in some posh house.
Oh, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Oh, well, so what's wrong with that? Does that make me a bad person or something?
Yeah.
Does it?
Well, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it does not make you a man of the people. Actually, we should get an update, should we not, on your tyre problem? What's the latest?
Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's amazing. The numbers are all different for each tyre, and yet they go up and down. So for instance, one tyre...
when you got in the car yesterday morning after you finished
the same.
It was the same.
Exactly the same.
And when you came in tonight, the same?
Exactly the same.
Ah.
So now I take no notice of it. I don't think my tyres are going down. And in fact, funnily enough... I got an insight into Formula 1 motor racing.
Did you?
Because after 5 minutes of travelling in tonight, the pressure of all the tyres went up by a percentage of about 5. So I'm saying to myself, now I know why they talk about warming the tyres in Formula 1 motor racing. Because obviously when you warm the tyres, they expand. They must do. Because the rubber expands.
Yeah, they do,
They must do. Yeah, the heat. You see what I mean?
Presumably, yeah.
Now listen, I want to talk to you about your knees.
My knees?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have a problem with your knees?
No.
Oh, you're going to have a problem with your knees?
I don't think so. Why would I?
Because it's become
I'm generally, actually, relatively sort of... some people when they get to my age say that they get a bit aches and pains and, they get a bit stiffness and all that. I don't suffer from any of that.
The knee is becoming the most common problem in people over 50 years of age.
Yeah.
And it's for 2 reasons.
Why?
One reason is humans are now much heavier than they used to be. So it puts more pressure on your knee joints.
I would imagine that's true.
Yeah, I would imagine that's true. But also, the too many people now exercise inappropriately, running on roads and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, which is very sort of bad for impact injuries, isn't it?
But the worst thing is people who have these personal trainers and personal physios, because they are being taught things to do with their body which are wrecking their knees.
Yeah.
This is the claim, right?
Now, I saw someone today, and I thought of you, actually, because I'm not normally one to be critical of the way that other people look.
Yes.
That's generally your area.
Yeah.
But as I was going towards the tube today, a bit earlier on,
yes.
there was a woman wearing a T-shirt which indicated that she was a personal trainer.
Oh, really?
Now, I don't know whether she was or not, but she did not look like a personal trainer,
right?
Shall we say. I mean,
overweight?
She was very overweight.
Very overweight woman, yeah. Doubt she was a personal trainer.
Well, why would she wear a personal trainer's T-shirt?
Oh, I don't know, perhaps she was showing off or something. It was told, so it says here... deep squats and things like that give people pain, but they think that they're not actually damaging their legs and their knees, but they are.
Well, so I mean, obviously, I'm not really a candidate for that since I don't do any running. I mean, the only running I do is occasionally running for the bus, which I very rarely do, and I don't do any of that kind of impact-like exercise.
One orthopaedic surgeon reports that when people are sent these days for an MRI scan because they've got knee pain or something like that, it reveals tears in the meniscus.
Meniscus?
The meniscus is a half-moon-shaped piece of rubbery cartilage between the thigh and the shin bones, stabilises the knee and protects the bones from wear and tear. Tearing it is relatively easy. All it might take is an awkward turn, and in some cases a piece of the shredded cartilage breaks loose and catches in the knee joint, causing it to lock up. This might have happened...
is this like at the front of the knee?
It's at the front of the knee,
I'm trying to feel it, you see.
Yeah, that's right. Now, a few weeks of physiotherapy might actually exacerbate that when you've got that sort of pain and somebody tells you to go and exercise your knee.
Right.
Now, the funny thing is...
Well, I mean, you're more likely to have bad knees because of all the walking you do, aren't you?
Well... Yes and no, but I try not to walk on roads too much. If I walk over the North and South Downs or something like that, I walk down the Solent on a pebble beach or something like that. I try to keep off the roads because I have been aware of this. But the funny thing is, my sister... played hockey until she was into her 50s, right?
Really?
Very active, and then she was a hockey umpire, and still very active at the hockey club and that kind of stuff. And she's got terrible knee problem now.
I think because of the hockey.
Definitely, she's had an operation on it, and the operation, people don't understand about knees. They so incapacitate you might as well be crippled, and infirm. With the greatest respect to people who are, because if you can't walk on both your legs, you are not an active, mobile human being.
No.
Now, she was told the only way to get it right was to literally lie down for 2 weeks. Keep your leg off the ground.
Really?
So my mum actually came from Bournemouth and stayed with her for 2 weeks, you see what I mean? To make sure she did the minimal amount of moving around. She's only walking on carpet and all that kind of stuff.
And did that do any good?
Well, the whole healing period should have happened in those 2 weeks. But months later, she's still plagued by problems with her knee. And it really curtails your life. Because, for instance... out of the back of her house, she can walk across fields and a golf club and get to our local pub. She can't do that anymore because when your knee's knackered, you're knackered. People don't realise how valuable knees are.
Well, that's what happened to old Harry Redknapp, wasn't it?
It was.
When he said that he literally couldn't be managing it anymore full time because he couldn't move around.
That's right.
Now,
absolutely.
Just before we do anything
else... So that's a warning to everybody. Look after your knees, OK?
Well, I think you should heed that warning yourself.
My medial ligament went. That was very painful. I had to rest that up for 2 weeks and get some physio on it. But physio doesn't always work.
No. So you have to get somebody to carry you down to the pub then?
Yeah, well, no, not. You get a car to come to you and take you.
Of course. Now, we've got to do listography coming up in this hour.
OK.
So I'm going to throw a few suggestions at you. If you don't like any of them, we can ask for more.
OK.
Mark says your top 3 footballers of all time. Mick in Spokane, your favourite 3 iconic football kits, or not iconic football kits. Liz says 3 best parties you've been to. 3 favourite jokes, which I don't think we've got time to tell those. Tarek says after last night's debacle, your 3 lowest points, sporting or personal.
Right.
What historic battle moment in time would you like to have been there to witness? That's actually coming as an Ask Porky, but it's more of a listography. 3 favourite or inspirational quotes. 3 places you want to see or visit. I think we had some of these yesterday. 3 pieces of advice you would give yourselves aged 20.
OK.
You like any of those?
Yeah, I do. Which one do you prefer?
What do you fancy?
The 3rd or 4th, I think, but I've forgotten what it was
now.
The
parties one is good, I think.
Parties, OK.
Parties is good.
Parties.
3 lowest points.
Lowest points, parties?
I think parties is a bit more upbeat.
Parties is upbeat.
3 favourite parties.
3 favourite parties.
All right, we'll do that. We'll do that in listography coming up in a little while.
Because that will involve bladderation tales.
It will, of course.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Coming up very shortly as well, it's going to be Ask a Porky, which is different from Listography, because that's where Porky gives you advice
exactly.
that you can't get anywhere else. This is TalkSport.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mites. Got a great one here from Charles, who's tweeted in at the Two Mites. He said, I used to live next door to MP John Redwood as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
My retriever would routinely leg it off and belly flop in his pond of prize fish. He hated it.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
that's a bit difficult, I suppose, if your dog keeps running next door.
Well, were they carp, koi carp or something?
He's lucky if they were, because he probably would have eaten them.
Indeed.
He was known as like the Dalek, wasn't he?
He was. He had ears like a.
the Vulcan. Sorry.
The Vulcan.
Yeah, he was known as the Vulcan. That's right.
Yeah.
A couple more here from Roy. Roy says, Roy is recovering. He's very fragile. Sounds like he was on the roof getting bladderated like the prima donna players.
Yeah, absolutely. I found that a very odd quote. As this, we should have great sympathy for him. I'm fragile. I'm shattered.
Yeah.
Well, you've done a bum job for 14 million quid, mate.
Right.
So I hope you do feel a sense of disappointment and really a sense of failure.
Yeah. El Cuervo, who doesn't say he's a medical expert, says, done properly, deep squats do not cause knee problems. Either you're being polemic or idiotic.
I'm not. I'm reading from medical reports.
Journals, yeah. Like all exercise, technique is key, he says. But that's true, I'm sure, El Cuervo. But the point is about technique. Not a lot of people have the technique, and they're amateurs, and so they might be damaging themselves.
Yes,
nobody's suggesting you shouldn't exercise.
No, absolutely. But if you do too much of it, I mean... the one thing footballers hate are shuttles, and that's
shuttles?
In pre-season training. What you do is you start from a point and you run out 10 yards, and you touch the floor, and then you run back, and then you run out and you do 20 yards, and you run out and do 30 yards.
Oh yeah, okay.
And it's an exercise designed to give you turning ability. You see what I mean? But it puts tremendous pressure on your knees.
Yeah.
Because if you have to get out there and get back as quickly as possible. It's and some of the training methods in years gone by are just not used anymore because they're so dangerous.
Right. Yeah. How about this one from Phil? He says that personal trainer T-shirt is a joke, you pair of idiots. Well, he says another word, but I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, well, how do you know?
It's not much of a joke if you're a very fat person and you're wearing a personal trainer T-shirt.
Yeah.
How is that funny?
Well, I totally agree. Now, you know that I have, information coming to me from, various political sources around the world, don't you?
Yes, I do.
And
particularly the Kremlin.
Well, funny you should say that. But the Kremlin has accused Netflix, who are a global streaming company.
Have you got Netflix yet?
No, I haven't.
Why not?
I don't know. I just never got around to it. The other thing I need to do, by the way, because I saw an advert saying you can do it for £6 a month, is subscribe to Sky box sets.
Yes.
Right?
Well, then you could watch all these series.
Yeah, so then I could give you your physical box set of House of Cards back, could I? And just watch it, yeah.
Although House of Cards is on Netflix, so I'm not sure if it might be on Sky, I don't know.
OK, but I mean, I just ring up Sky and say, look, just add it to my...
Yeah, you could probably do it online.
One of my Sky bills, is about 160 quid a year.
You're getting ripped
160
off
quid a month or something.
Unbelievably.
Well, it includes...
160 quid a month?
Yeah, but it includes like phone and broadband and all that kind of stuff.
But, you shouldn't be paying anything for your home phone.
Well,
because you don't really use it that much, right? You shouldn't be paying more than 20 quid a month for that.
I'll get somebody to examine it and sort it out. But anyway, so the Kremlin, Netflix, right, is part of an American plot to subvert Russian society and culture.
Of course.
No, this guy called Vladimir.
Yeah.
Whose surname is Medinsky. And he's the Minister of Culture, right, in Russia, so he's Putin's big mate, loyal support of Putin.
Yeah.
He says the film streaming service is on the US government payroll and is, a plot from Silicon Valley entertainment giants.
Yeah.
He says the theory of a Russian news service... he was explaining this to the Russian news service, who said the White House... had realised how to enter every home and creep into every television and through that television into the head of every person on Earth with the help of Netflix.
Yeah, well...
He says they're demons.
Well, this is what they say in Russia, isn't it? I mean, every time anything happens, when the Russian hooligan thing was going on, they were saying it was all part of it was all being caused by the English fans.
Yes.
Whenever the Russians get banned from the Olympics in Rio, suddenly that's a plot by the West to keep Russia out. And the Russian sort of populace, because they're not used to being told the truth.
That's right.
Just swallow it all.
Well, this guy goes on to say that what America have done is very cleverly is turned Russian dogma against the Russians, because where they got the idea for this was Lenin once apparently banned cinemas in Russia because they could be used for propaganda against the government.
Yes.
So he closed them down.
Right.
So what Mr. Medinsky's saying
is
is
this
that...
is what I always say to you when you're always raving on about how great Putin is.
Yeah.
You know, censorship is not a great thing, I have to tell you. And
Yeah.
I wouldn't be very proud of it if I was living there.
But the Russians are saying the Americans use it the other way around. They actually subvert the minds of their own people against the rest of the world. He said, where do you think all these gigantic startups come from? Where do you think the funding comes from? It comes from the American government.
Oh, yeah.
He says...
Well, I think that's been used to the American government, isn't it?
Well, he says the CIA have funded art exhibitions, they fund musicians personally, they fund Hollywood films... and particularly during the Cold War, you know, many productions were made to turn the world against the Russian people.
Right.
And he's right about that in a way.
Well, no, I mean, obviously there are things which the American government backs in the same way that the British Film Institute, which is backed by the British government, you know, pays for movies to be made. I mean, the BBC makes films, that's funded by the government. The Channel 4 makes films, funded by the government. You know, I think they're being slightly disingenuous there.
Did you ever remember seeing a film in America, because I saw it, about a bunch of kids who ran off up into the hills and started a terrorist movement against the Russians after the Russians invaded America?
Yeah, Red Dawn.
Was it Red Dawn?
Yeah, Patrick Swayze.
And was it with the kids?
Terrible film.
No, weren't they in a school classroom when they saw the Russian
it was an invasion, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was invasion.
It was during that period of time when Rambo was making films about
that's right.
You know, invading various places.
Afghanistan and all that,
I mean, funnily enough, it was one of the few films that I've seen more times than I want to have seen.
Yeah.
Because it was on HBO.
Oh, was it?
And when I was living in New York, it came out, and when you were watching HBO, particularly if you were a bit bladderated,
that's right,
basically you just watch any old rubbish that was on there.
That's
right.
Right.
It was always on.
I
must have seen that film about 20 times.
Well, I've only ever seen it once, but I'd like to see it again. I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's called Red Dawn.
And what did the gang call themselves?
Oh, I can't. Was it the Wolverines? Or
Wolverines.
It was
they were the Wolverines.
I'm getting like you. I can only remember certain things.
Yeah, and they fought back against the Russians. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Patrick Swayze, and it was a particularly bad film. But if you like sort of good bad films, it's definitely worth watching.
Yeah, there's another one here. This is incredible. Mr. Medinsky, who's 45, has also made it absolutely clear that the Soviet government deny absolutely that Tchaikovsky was gay.
Yeah, well, they have a bit of a problem with sort of state-sponsored homophobia, don't they?
In defiance of almost every biographer of the famous musician.
Well, that'll be another Western plot to try and somehow besmirch Tchaikovsky's name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some in the arts turn up their noses at Mr. Medinsky, who's seen as a Putinite functionary without much knowledge of what his subject is, despite his PhD in history.
Yeah.
After he promised to deny funding to films denigrating Russia, one MP in the State Duma, the Duma is the Russian parliament,
it is indeed,
said, "We're not afraid of the Minister of Culture, we're afraid of the culture of the Minister."
Oh, yeah.
So he's not the most popular man in Russia.
No, he certainly isn't.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, funnily enough, we haven't spoken about this most recently, but I mean, as far as we know at the moment, the status quo is that no Russian athletes are going to Rio, right? So, I mean, certainly track and field-wise, there's nobody going from Russia.
There's a massive appeal going on at the moment, isn't there, to the IAAF, or whatever they're called, you know, the International Amateur Athletics Federation.
Right. Have you seen that guy Shane Lowry, the Irish golfer, is also now not going? So apparently, instead of
is he not going because of the
Zika virus?
So
both he and Rory McIlroy have pulled out.
Yeah.
So apparently, I saw a tweet earlier today, which now means apparently that instead of having like the world's number 2 and sort of number 7 golfers, or maybe 1 again, they've got sort of 250 and 290.
Yeah.
As far as the ranking is concerned,
they've got 2.
Yeah.
2 what?
Well, 2 golfers who are ranked something like 250th.
Oh, I see.
290th.
They're the only ones who are going so far.
Instead of Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy, who were going to be ranked sort of in the top 10.
I understand what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yes,
so I mean, their chances of getting a gold medal in the golf, I would say, have been reduced significantly.
Yeah, I would as well. Yeah. They're more likely to get a gold medal in crazy golf, than golf.
Exactly right.
But I mean, Brazil being Brazil, and what state it'll be in by the time the Olympics get there, it might be crazy golf
it's
anyway.
Not very far away, and I don't get any sense that there's a sort of a huge anticipation building for it.
No.
I really don't.
It'd be interesting to talk to Tim next week, because when you last spoke to him, he was in America, but about to go back to Brazil.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, he's been away 3 weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Now, I bet you he'll have a view on that when he gets back to find out exactly what stage they're at to provide the facilities for an Olympic Games.
Yeah, no, I think
without a shadow of a doubt.
I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, now here, I heard you talk about knees. This is from Alistair. I had a full knee replacement at 33 years of age. Few understand what a lifestyle incapacitator it is.
Yeah.
See, we get onto the right subjects all the time here, Mike.
Well, that's what we
really do.
That is what we do. Now, as far as Wimbledon is concerned,
yes.
I think I'm right in saying that Marcus Willis is going to play Roger Federer a little bit later on today.
Right.
He's the guy that we talked about last night who normally has only earned 200 quid so far this year.
Right.
He's guaranteed 50 grand to play in the second round at Wimbledon against Roger Federer.
Yes.
Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing.
He's number 772 in the world.
Incredible.
Now, I don't want you to put the Porky jinx on him.
No.
Right?
No.
So please don't say that he could win against Federer.
No, he couldn't. He's got no chance.
He has got a chance.
He's got no chance.
In tennis, you always have a chance.
Yeah, he's got no chance of taking...
Roger Federer could pull out halfway through the game.
Wow.
He could get a bye. Roger Federer is not as young as he used to be.
In a straight game of tennis, he ain't going to beat him. And
under normal circumstances, I would agree.
I say the guy won't win 6 games.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, I'll take your bet on that.
Okay.
I'll take your bet.
Okay.
Okay.
£25.
Huh?
£25.
£25?
Yeah.
Why don't we have a bottle of champagne or something?
Well, I want to knock it off the £100 that you owe me if I lose.
I thought you were going to say you want to knock it off the million you want to knock. You don't owe me.
No, not at all. No.
So why don't you just make it 100 then, and it's double of quits?
No, I'm not going to do that. No. Why should I give you £100 back? You thieving. Miscreant.
Because you owe me £1 million.
No, I don't owe you anything.
You do?
No, I don't. You couldn't find somebody to rent your rat-infested apartment. That's not my fault.
Because you booked out of it, having signed a shake hands contract to live there for 2 years.
Now, Caroline, who's a regular listener and correspondent, she says...
From Kuala Lumpur, I believe.
Yeah, is she? I didn't know that.
I think so.
We had our lab, that's a Labrador, not a laboratory, for 10 years in an apartment... What's your problem?
Yeah, because a lot of people have a laboratory in the apartment.
Oh, I'm
just going to go and make some crystal meth.
I'm trying to make it clear, that's all. We had our lab for 10 years in an apartment. She had 3 long walks a day, off the lead, big roof garden, and lived happily till she was 15 years old.
Oh, that's good.
You shouldn't let your dog loose on a roof garden. It might jump off the building.
Well, it wouldn't jump
off
the building.
That's what dogs do.
No, although I did hear a terrible story of some friends who had a lab.
Yes.
And for some reason they were either out of the house or in the garden or something like that, and the dog was upstairs, and one of the windows was open.
Jumped out the window.
Yeah, the people who were next door had another dog visit, and he got so excited that he wanted to go and see the other dog.
Yeah.
And he did jump out the window, broke every single one of his paws.
He survived, though.
He has survived.
Poor little thing.
Yeah,
you don't know how high up the window was.
But they can be pretty dopey, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Now it's coming up to that time.
Okay.
It's for Ask Porky.
Yeah.
It's every Tuesday into Wednesday morning.
Yeah.
It's if you need any kind of quandary sorted out, if you need any kind of dilemma answered, if any kind of problem, it could be personal of any kind, could be business. Mr. Parry is here to help. We've got an awful lot of questions that we need your help with. Now the first one, which I think is pretty apposite considering what's going on, and I'm not even sure if you're able to answer this, but David kicks it off on Twitter with Porky, who's running the country?
Who's running the country?
Yeah.
Civil servants. They think they run the country most of the time, by the way. Civil servants regard politicians as a bit of a nuisance who get in the way of the civil servants implementing policies which they particularly like. For instance, the Foreign Office in this country, the civil servants who man it, have always been accused of being very pro-Arabic, OK?
Yeah.
And this goes back to colonial days. Pro-Arabic.
Arabic?
Pro-Arabic.
Yeah.
Pro-countries from Arabia, from the Middle East.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing, and sometimes anti-Israeli, and that goes down to the historical fact that Israel wasn't around before the Second World War and that sort of thing, when Britain had an empire and it's institutionalised in the Foreign Office and that kind of stuff. So the civil servants do really believe they run the country and that politicians come and go, but civil servants stay there forever. The civil servants now will be working on policies which have been underway for years, if not, decades.
OK. Here's one from Stephen on Twitter. Going to Chester soon for the day. What are the nicest places for mild bladderation and something good to eat?
Well, Chester's changed a lot lot in the years since I left there. You can, of course, visit the Harrods of the North, which is Browns of Chester,
yes.
Also known as Debenhams.
Yeah.
But funny enough, the last time I was there, which was a couple of years ago, I did notice a huge increase in facilities like restaurants and bars and, boutique hotels and that sort of thing.
Right.
All I can tell you is where to go, and that is go down Watergate Street, go down Northgate Street, take a walk along the bank of the canal where loads of new buildings have sprung up, like Venice and that sort of thing. Chester is a great city, and you'll have a great time.
OK, Tom says this on Facebook. Porky, what happened to Wayne Rooney's leadership on the pitch, reassuring manner to younger players and knowledge of tournaments during the game with Iceland? Did all these qualities go AWOL?
Well, no, I don't think they did, but I think he was as confused as everybody else about what the plan was. And if you don't know what the plan is, if you don't know what the plan that's been handed down to you, is a clear and concise instruction what to do, how do you pass that on to the other players? You can't. Did he have any control over whether the fullback should have been playing wider or whether they should have come inside or whether they should be swinging crosses over or whatever? Nobody seems to know what was going on. Yeah. Did he know even his own role in midfield and to what extent he was supposed to play almost like a quarterback, that Beckham sometimes used to play? The answer to that one is the communication machinery between Roy Hodgson and his players through the captain, Wayne Rooney, simply did not work.
True. Matt says this, a bit early here with this one, but will they now be known as Tunnel and Star as we're no longer in the European Union? Obviously the Eurotunnel and the Eurostar.
No, because they go to Europe. So, therefore, if they're going to Europe, they're heading into Euroland, Euro territory. It's nothing to do with the political star. It will still be called the Eurostar and the Eurotunnel. But the difference will be is you'll need a passport to get there.
Mark says this on Facebook. I have 2 children, a little boy and a little girl. My little girl is showing a big interest in football, whereas my little boy couldn't care less. Have I failed as a father?
No, of course you haven't failed as a father. If your little girl is showing interest in football, you must encourage it. Make sure you take her to, some, children's coaching sessions and that kind of stuff. And she may grow up and want to join a women's football team. If your little boy show no interest in it, don't, for goodness sake. No parent should bully a child into taking an interest in something that you think the child should be interested in. It could well be that boy of yours could be the next John Lennon, and he might have a magical talent when he picks up a guitar or plays a piano or something like that. In which case you encourage that as well.
OK. Here's one from Stephen on Facebook. It says, Porky, I'm going on holiday for 10 days on Thursday and my brother-in-law talks more drivel than you. How do you suppose I shut the plank up without offending him?
Well, I assume that you're going on holiday with your brother-in-law, so that means there's 2 families going. And what you do is, every day, you get up earlier than everybody else and set the agenda for what's happening on the day. The trouble with brother-in-laws is that, when there's a number of people, if one of them's got a particularly dominant personality, everything that you do on your holiday will be what he wants to do, and you've got to make it absolutely clear. Is this correspondent a man or a woman?
He's a man from Coatbridge.
A man from Coatbridge. Coatbridge is in...
outskirts of Glasgow.
Outskirts of Glasgow, thank you. What you've got to do is you've got to make it absolutely clear that even though you're going on holiday, with another family, right, you can have separate agendas or you can have a joint agenda. And the idea is if you have separate agendas, and he didn't say he was going on holiday, but for instance, supposing you're going somewhere hot and the other party want to go to the beach for the day, but you want to do a bit of cultural visiting up in the hills, going to see a monastery or something like that, you've got to make it absolutely clear that you are not joined at the hip during this holiday. You might be staying in the same place, but you can do what you want. If you don't, you'll get angry and frustrated, you'll turn to bladderation tendencies, rows will break out, and there'll be a family crisis.
Yeah, especially from Coatbridge, it can get a bit violent.
It can.
Now, Mark says this, I want a job as junior assistant press officer at the FA. Given your previous experience in this role, what do I do?
Well, I'll tell you what the problem is. When I went there were proper, well-trained journalists available to go and take up those PR positions. The problem now is we turn out tens of thousands of media graduates every year from universities that never used to exist in this country, but which do now. Like, for instance, the West Anglian Institute, or whatever it was that Mr. Ashford went to. Ashford went to. So all I can say to you is this. If you have a particular ambition to work for a sporting organisation like the FA, then I suppose you've got to present your credentials like everybody else and go along and try and impress in the interview. That's the only way you can do it. As it happens, I was recruited to the FA by a colleague, David Davis, who was a broadcast journalist. I was a newspaper journalist at the time, but our paths had crossed over the years in the northwest of England, and he asked me, because of my experience and my ability to communicate, to go and help him, which I was happy to do.
OK, here's an interesting one from Kai Yang, who says, Porky, would you consider cloning yourself?
No, not because I feel it would be wrong to have more than one person like me on Earth, but I think it'd be dangerous to go around cloning anybody.
Yeah.
And also...
Dolly the sheep didn't work out well.
No, Dolly the sheep didn't work out well. Each of us is unique. You know, there are no two similar human beings on Earth, and that's because God designated that we are all, even to a small degree, different. Therefore...
You're sure it was God?
Yes, I'm certain. Therefore, for moral reasons, I don't approve of cloning.
What about twins?
Well, twins both come from the same egg, but they're not cloned. They are the result.
Quite similar, though, aren't they?
Well, they can be identical, but they don't think the same in every aspect of their lives because their brains aren't the same.
Yeah, well, I wonder about that, but that's another story for another time. Jonathan says this: in August, I'm getting the Amtrak train from Boston to New York, just the regional service. As a poor man, I can't afford the express. What should I expect from an American rail trip? How does it differ from a British train trip? If you can remember back to travelling in standard class.
Well, all I can say about that is I was always disappointed by those rail trips up and down the eastern seaboard, if I ever took one. I took one once from, a few times, New York to Washington, and I think I've been up to Boston on the train. I've certainly been up to Albany in the New York state.
How about Albany?
Albany, the capital of New York, the state. And I've always been terribly disappointed because, like in some rail journeys, that you get along a coast or something like that, you see, like, the sea and trees and all that, but particularly the one from New York to Washington, terribly disappointing. Just urban.
Well, it goes over some nice bridges in Maryland, though.
But I mean,
probably bladderated by that.
Well, I may have been, but most of it, when I looked out the window, just seemed to be urban spread.
Really?
And urban sprawl. Yeah,
it wasn't. You were looking the wrong way.
Wasn't impressed at all. I don't know why anybody get a blinking train from New York to Boston. Anyway, you can get a flight in an hour for $90.
I used to use it a lot because it was easy for me because I lived quite near Penn Station.
Right. Yeah.
So rather than going all the way out to the airport,
sure,
and then going all the way out to it's a 15th Street Bridge coming in from DC. It was always a nightmare. But anyway, and it was 2.5, 3 hours, I think, something like that.
Yes.
Here's one from Tarek who says, should I go to my best friend's wedding or come to the Two Mics live? He doesn't say where.
You can do both because usually our shows are in the evening.
No, well, not if the wedding's in the evening
7:30, 8 o'clock. Well, it's not in the evening, is it? A wedding usually takes place about 2 o'clock.
Well, but they go all night, though, don't they?
No, not necessarily. You can go to a reception at 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock, something like that, and then come on to our show. You'd be very welcome indeed. And in fact, bring the bride with you.
Well, he's not marrying her, though.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Well, so he should take his brother's wife.
Extend the invitation.
His best friend's wife.
Extend the invitation.
You'd enjoy that, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Here's one from Mark. He says, Porky, do you think Nigel Pearson would make a good England manager as he is more ruthless than you?
Well, I think Nigel Pearson will go down in history as the man who missed out on creating a Premier League team. Because you ask anybody, and they'll say, well, the foundations were laid by Nigel Pearson. But then, actually, if you look at the team that Nigel Pearson played in the last 12 games of the season he was there, and the team that won the Premier League, they're almost identical. Yeah. So I would say Nigel Pearson's got great managerial credentials, but I don't know if he's a stable enough individual, i.e., keeping the peace and keeping calm to qualify for that sort of post.
Sure. Paul says this, hi, Porky, my granddads call me Grumpy Paul. What can I do to change this? I'm not really that grumpy, just a bit.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, the point is, if you've got attitude problems, which some people do have, then I should get rid of them because attitude problems rub other people up the wrong way. There's no harm whatsoever in thinking your own mind and speaking your mind and being specific in life. But attitude problems to me normally mean people who are uncooperative because they just don't get on with their workmates or with their friends or something like that. Try and correct it because it gives you a bad reputation.
Okay, final one from Daniel. Hi, Porky. I'm a 33-year-old Finnish long-time listener, and I'm thinking of going back to uni studying philosophy. Should I do it or find a job instead?
Is this guy from Finland?
Well, he says he's Finnish.
Finnish, yeah.
So I presume he is from Finland.
Finnish something else or something. Never go back to university. Complete waste of time. I left school at 18, went to the University of the Trent for a year, realised I was wasting my life because I wanted to get on with life and create a career, and undoubtedly I made the right decision. If I'd stayed for the 4 years of that course that I was on, 1 year was a year out, I'd probably been an estate agent now, and that would have been disastrous for me.
You'd be useless at that.
Oh, no, I'd be pretty good.
You're not slimy enough.
Well, would have made a lot of money and all that kind of stuff. But
I don't think you're slimy enough.
Yeah, well, you say that. I take that as a compliment. But
you should.
But most people I know who have fulfilling lives haven't done it because of the degree they've got. They've done it despite.
OK. Well, that was Ask Porky. We're out of time, I'm afraid. If your question didn't get asked, my apologies. We will put some of them in a bank, and we sometimes refer to them later if they are particularly timeless.
Yes.
Same time next week, of course. We'll be doing the same thing. Tomorrow night's Porky Vision, and then the Porky Quiz on Thursday is on Iceland. Coming up next, though, is Listography.
Yes.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
You gotta fight for your right to party!
He was there with all your glamorous friends at your glamorous house, your glamorous swimming pool. Do you know how I spent that night? A packet of frozen fish fingers and a tin of mushy peas.
You gotta fight!
I couldn't have, Mylene Klass and Catherine Jenkins and Holly Willoughby exposed to Parry the Barbarian. It was a danger and a risk I wasn't prepared to take.
How could you do that to me?
So who was that?
Terrible thing about radio is that there's always an archive.
There is, I'm afraid, yeah.
I'm afraid that was Piers Morgan's party.
Yes, it was,
which you didn't get invited to.
Indeed.
I wasn't going to bring that up,
No.
but since it's now been raised, I suppose I'll have to say that was one of the great parties I did go to.
Yes.
Which was Piers Morgan's 50th one.
Yes.
His wedding was pretty good as well.
Yes.
But I'll only mention one of them.
OK.
And as he said, Marlene Klass was there. I had a very nice chat with her.
Yes.
Holly Willoughby.
Nice lady.
Suzanne Reid.
Yeah.
Ant and Deck were there.
Yes.
Played a bit of golf with them.
Yes.
Lots and lots of glamorous people, which is not really my thing particularly.
Doing a bit of star effing, were you?
But it wasn't star what?
Star effing.
That's not a very nice thing to
No,
say.
well, I'm going to use the word. But
actually, I spent most of the night,
Yes.
funnily enough, talking to my old mates from the Mirror that I hadn't seen for a very long time.
Oh, really? Yeah.
But people were coming up to me naturally because they obviously knew that I was somebody worth talking to.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, fabulous party.
Because
fancy
you worked
dress.
with me, of course.
It was fancy dress. No, nobody actually asked about you. It was fancy dress, and I went as a.
I've never been to a fancy dress party. I wouldn't go to one.
Yeah, well, you probably wouldn't have needed to dress up. You just come as you are.
No.
But I had to go and hire a costume. Which was a sort of vaguely 20s theme.
Yes.
And it was a great night, I have to say. I spent an awful lot of money in a hotel down there.
Yes.
Because it was the last room available.
Right.
And it was the King Edward Suite or something like that in this hotel.
Yeah.
It was far more expensive than I had planned in mind. But it's very good.
So Piers didn't offer a bed for the night then?
Well, no, I wouldn't have wanted to stay at his house.
No, of course not.
I suspect most people didn't stay there. But there was quite a few people in the hotel I was in. But it was very good. Very exciting. It was a couple of years ago, I think, now.
Yes, it was, very good.
So, what's your first one then?
My first one was when I was about 15. And it was a mate's birthday party, but it's the first one we smuggled alcohol into. And it was in a big farm, right? And his parents lived in another part of the house. You see what I mean? His dad had managed to convert one of the barns. You know what I mean?
Right.
Put a few couches in there and rigged up a bit of a disco and all that kind of stuff.
And you were 15?
I think it was 15, yeah. And we smuggled alcohol in, and it was the first party I went to where it was blissfully like everything I wanted in life. So you spent 10 or 15 minutes legally groping a young lady on a couch, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And in a consensual
And did people
manner.
sort of move from one couch to another, so there was a kind of constant...
that sort of thing.
Sort of, what do you call it, a conveyor belt?
Well, that sort of thing. And then you'd get up, and because somebody had put on a great record, and a great record in those days was something like, the Beatles or the Kinks or something, you know what I mean? And you dance around for a bit and swig a bit more...
illegal loot.
Well, I think it was on the bottles of cheap cider that night, right? And then you'd go and grab another young lady and you'd go off on another groping session, for about...
Shocking, this.
No, but it was brilliant. It was. I mean, I felt grown up for the first time. You know what I mean? I was having sort of relationships with women. I was drinking booze. I was dancing to the Beatles. In my new shoes and all that kind of stuff. And it was blissful. And I thought I want to spend the rest.
And the parents never came and interrupted it.
No, well, not until about sort of midnight, 12:30 or something like that. And then you had to make arrangements to get home. Either your parents came to collect you, or you'd had a car waiting for you, or something like that. Or I think some of us just sort of carried on, in a field or something like that. And I did, I remember, yeah.
Right.
It was a nice summer's evening.
Okay.
And I thought, this is how I want to spend the rest of my life. And
so indeed, as you have.
For many years I did, yes, yes.
Okay. My second one's going to be, I used to do this quite a few years in a row, but I'm not going to pick one particular year.
Yes.
So I used to go, as you did from time to time, to a university club in New York for New Year's Eve bashes.
Well, funny enough, I was going to raise that. I won't know. But anyway, go on, tell us about it.
I mean, university club being one of these places which we were never members of, but we had friends who were members of it.
Yes.
And they used to do this very lavish party, which you paid quite a few $100s per ticket. I remember one particular year I brought my parents over, and 4 of us went, and it was magnificent. It was this old building around about sort of 54th Street or something like that, top Fifth Avenue.
I stayed there, actually.
Did you? Yeah, you could stay there as well. And it was a bit like sort of the RAC club in the sense that they had, and you'd go in, and it was black tie and everything, and they'd have a sort of chamber orchestra playing as you walked in.
Yeah.
Then you'd go up a level, and there'd be a guy cutting roast beef, making roast beef sandwiches and rolls and things, and then there'd be another floor up, there'd be a disco. Another floor up, there'd be some kind of
country and western
music going on. I think they had a pool room as well where people could play pool.
It was brilliant,
and it was just a magnificent night. And we always ended up, no matter how posh it was, and no matter how expensive it was, at 4 o'clock in the morning, I think you get kicked out.
Yes,
and we'd all go to Eamon Duran's.
Yes,
which was rammed with people who were not in black tie, and it was just a contrast of spending that kind of New Year's night, which was wonderful.
Absolutely, and there was a different form of music on every floor. It was about a 7-floored building.
That's right. Yeah,
and I stayed there as well. It was like staying in an English gentleman's club, and I used to browse around in the library and drink brandy and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
brilliant,
very nice.
No, my second one was, funny enough, it's New York as well. And it was New Year's Day. And, if you're an expat in America, it's always nice to be invited into somebody's American home on like Thanksgiving or New Year's Day or Christmas Day or something like that, And what happened on New Year's Day was, we'd all been to, I think we'd actually been to the party you're talking about the night before, and then we all started getting phone calls from the guy who ran British Information Services, right? So this wasn't the ambassador.
Which was like the embassy, wasn't it?
Well, it was like the New York embassy, but it wasn't the ambassador. The ambassador lived in Washington, D.C., and he lived in the Lutyens' mansion, where I've also been to a party, by the way. But on this particular day, on New Year's Day, it was bitterly cold. I love it when it's bitterly cold in New York and clear blue sky. And he said, look, why don't we all get together and have a few drinks at lunchtime, to get over the revels of New Year's Eve. And it was most magnificent hospitality. We went round to his, he had a mansion. It was like what's the mayor's mansion called?
Gracie Mansion.
Gracie Mansion. It was like that. It was like that. He lived in one of those houses, a Grace and Favour house provided by the British government.
Right.
And it was magnificent. We had, waitresses serving wine, and we just loads of British people there. Famous people came along, businessmen, all that. It was great.
Yeah.
And it just made you feel really at home in Manhattan. But it was just the occasion that was so unexpected.
Right.
Unexpected parties are always the best.
Unexpected parties are always the best. One of my favourites was one that I sort of ended up going to by accident.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll have probably been in plenty of these situations. It was in New Orleans,
right,
where I'd never been before.
Right.
And I was sent down there to chase Princess Michael of Kent, who we'd heard was there, in a nefarious situation.
Yeah.
And we might have to find out who she was with.
Befriending people.
Indeed. And it was the book convention. They used to have a big book convention in Frankfurt every year, but they also had one in America.
Right.
And this one was there. And we somehow learned that she might be attending the HarperCollins party.
Yes.
So myself and a photographer got ourselves invited along to this HarperCollins party. And it was and having never been there before, it was everything you'd expect it to be. It was in this kind of mint julep style mansion.
Yeah, beautiful.
Big American mansion with a big porch going around the outside.
Fantastic.
All these waiters wearing white gloves walking around with mint juleps, literally.
Yes.
And the photographer, who'd already been there a couple of days ahead of me, had already got himself a Rogerisation partner.
Really?
Who was the daughter of Shari Lewis. Do you remember Shari Lewis used to do lamb chop?
Oh, yeah, I do, yeah.
This was her daughter, right?
Golly.
Who had a friend who I then was mixed up with. Very nice. It became a very successful night.
Yes.
We went on tram rides. I was staying in this fantastic hotel, the name of which I forget, but it was right on the seafront of New Orleans. And it was a magnificent party and a magnificent night, so I remember it quite well.
Fantastic.
Without giving them too much away.
Well, exactly. The third one, I think, has to be my arrival on Necker, which is Richard Branson's island. Because what happened is, when we got there, I got there with a group of people on what you might call a facility trip.
Yeah, freebie.
Whilst we were in the British Virgin Islands. And they said, right, there's drink waiting in all your rooms, because there's only 10 bedrooms, and they'll look out.
How did you snag one of them?
What do you mean?
How did you snag one of them?
What do you mean, snag?
Snag, as in get.
Well, because I was invited.
Yeah, I know, but how did you get to be one of the 10 people invited to Necker?
I don't know, just because I did, you know, and...
Just a sparkling personality.
Yeah, and all the showers, by the way, are outdoor. They, you know, you walk out of your bedroom onto a balcony, and that's where your shower is, and it's open. There's no ceiling on it, because it never rains.
All right.
It's brilliant. And they said, there's drink in your room, and party starts at 7:30, dinner at 8:30, and dancing until you drop. And it was brilliant, for obvious
Anybody
reasons.
else there that you can't name for obvious reasons? Or?
Well, not famous people, no. There were no rock stars there or anything like that. But there were... Necker's more than just Richard Branson's house, because you've got a lot of staff on the island. So the staff actually came up to their house and they just mingled, really. You know, I mean, when I say staff, one of them was like, you know, water skiing instructor and all that kind of stuff. Really interesting people. Yeah. And all, but there were... The collection of people I was with included like Oxford graduates and all that kind of stuff. It was brilliant.
It's a very strange mix of people. And
it was very strange.
I don't know how to quite put this.
Yes.
But did you?
No Rogerisation took place. No.
Really?
No, because to be honest, it was such an insular party. There was nowhere else to go. You were going to stay there for a couple of days. It might have been quite embarrassing to have tried to pick up on normal relationships the next morning. You know what I mean? There's nowhere to run, so to speak.
Right.
So
because that's your normal MO, is it?
Sort of.
You
Get
stuck in and then you run away.
Well, no, I don't run away. I sort of melt into the distance, if you see what I mean.
I see.
But there was no distance. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
nearest island's a bit of a swim away, isn't it?
It is a bit of a swim away, and it went on literally all night. I remember having a Bloody Mary with lots of pepper in it for breakfast at about sort of 8 o'clock the following morning, and then we all got in a boat, a Boston whaler, and went to a place called the Pirates Pub, which was literally a pub on a blob of rock.
About that,
just on a blob of rock with a fantastic jukebox. Mind you, Necker had the world's best jukebox. Any record you wanted, you could just summon up electronically and it was all there, you know. Brilliant.
Amazing stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that was Listography. We'll have another one tomorrow, of course. We're nearly out of time again. This is, of course, the Two Mics. This is TalkSport.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on TalkSport and Talk Radio.
The lady you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain. So before we go do it all again, you better catch your own train.
This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics. There will be a podcast coming out a little bit later on, of course. I've got quite a busy day ahead of me, you know.
What are you up to?
I'm going to be crossing the globe. Audibly? No, audibly.
Yeah.
I've been asked to talk about the whole Brexit scenario.
Who with?
In San Diego with the lovely Donna Harvey.
Oh, yeah.
And also down in Australia.
Really?
With Francis Lee. So I'm going to be on almost simultaneously.
Yes.
In two different continents.
Yeah.
Quite good, isn't it?
You know, I was called upon by the Breakfast Show this morning to talk about the...
You know, I was going to ask you if you were on the Breakfast Show, because I heard somebody saying that you sounded very angry on the Breakfast Show.
Well,
I don't know why you were angry.
Well, I was
angry on this show.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I was angry about Roy Hodgson and the fact that he'd taken £7 million for 2 years. I actually said that. I said he must have known what he was doing and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Okay.
And,
what time are you on? I can go back and listen to it.
It was, well, if you want to, it was 9:45. Point is, I was on my way into town because I had another job to do.
Oh, yeah.
But Mr. Brazil insisted, you know, that...
so you had to be shoehorned in here?
Yeah.
So did you come in the studio?
No, I didn't. No, I did it from Clapham Junction railway station.
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah.
Marvellous.
But,
you got any plans to be doing any more radio broadcasting today?
No, but I am going to be making a video podcast with yourself.
Yes.
Very shortly.
Well, we will be doing that, yeah.
Yes.
But we'll see the fruits of that coming up tomorrow, really.
Yes, exactly.
It's all in time for the quarter-final Euros.
That'll be after the show's finished today, of course.
Yes, of course. Absolutely right. It's just hard to keep up. And as we said, of course, for anyone who doesn't know, rugby is our next stop. Go on Twitter or follow the 2mics.co.uk. You can find all our other dates. We're going to Edinburgh Festival at the end of August.
Yeah.
We're going to Liverpool in November, Whitney Bay.
You got the hotels fixed for Edinburgh yet?
I haven't yet, no.
Because you do need a hotel.
Yeah, we'll sort that out. This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mics.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
Do you know what I was going to say? Very stupidly then. I was going to say there's one performer who actually went nearly blind. I was going to say for Stevie Wonder, but of course Stevie Wonder, sadly, he was born blind, wasn't he?
Sadly.
And wears dark glasses. But there was... Sorry. No, it was a faux pas. Sorry about that. We had our lab, that's a Labrador, not a laboratory, for 10 years in an apartment. What's your problem?
Yeah, because a lot of people have a laboratory in the apartment.
Oh, I'm
just going to go and make some crystal meth.
I'm trying to make it clear, that's all.
If you love the Two Mikes podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
I don't really know what I'm doing here.